Good morning and welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for March 12th, 2019. Madam Clerk.
Item 1 on the closed session agenda is conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code 54957.6. County designated labor negotiator Judy Hawkins regarding employee organization, Calaveras County Sheriff's Management Unit.
Any public comments on this item? Seeing none, move on.
Item 2, public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, title County Administrative Officer.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Item 3, the item 3 closed session will be held at 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. prior to today's lunch break. Threat to public services or facilities pursuant to Government Code Section 54957A, consultation with Captain Jim Macedo of the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we will recess to closed session. Good. Thank you, Mark. Good morning and welcome back to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for March 12th, 2019. We'll begin by reporting out on closed session. Madam Clerk.
Report of closed session held on March 5th, 2019. Public employee employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, County Administrative Officer. On a motion by Supervisor Mills and a second by Supervisor Callaway, and a unanimous vote of the board to direct the Director of Human Resources to extend an offer of appointment to a candidate as the new County Administrative Officer, subject to completion of the background check. Once the appointment is accepted and the background check is completed, the name will be disclosed and staff will bring a resolution forward memorializing the appointment. Report of today's closed sessions. Item 1, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, County designated labor negotiator Judy Hawkins regarding employee organization, Calaveras County Sheriff's Management Unit. No reportable action was taken. Item 2, public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, title County Administrative Officer. No action by the board. An offer of appointment has been extended. Once the appointment is accepted and the background check is completed, the name will be disclosed and staff will bring a resolution forward memorializing the appointment. Item 3, threat to public services or facilities pursuant to Government Code Section 54957A, consultation with Captain Jim Macedo of the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office. This item will be held at 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. prior to today's lunch break.
Thank you very much. Just for everybody here, we will be going back into closed session at 11:30. So you're aware. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor Stoppage, please lead us together.
Please begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Are there any announcements by the Board of Supervisors? Staff?
Rita wasn't going to mention something?
Oh, sorry. If you can wait just a second.
Irish Days is coming up? Irish Days? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Kristen Brinks, Health and Human Services Agency. I just wanted to recognize this month as Social Worker Appreciation Month. Our team of dedicated social workers do very much embody what is this year's theme, which is Elevate Social Work. And I just wanted to recognize and have your board recognize their extreme efforts and contributions to serving vulnerable older adults and adults who have needs, as well as the youth of our community. So just that was it.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Seeing none, we will move on to recognition and acknowledgements.
Item 4 is from the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors to adopt a proclamation recognizing March 2019 as American Red Cross Month in Calaveras County.
Supervisor Mills.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. This is a acknowledgement, a proclamation on Red Cross. It says, whereas the American Red Cross has touched many lives in Calaveras County, as well as across the country and around the world, and whereas during American Red Cross Month, we thank those who contribute to the mission of the Red Cross, whether through time, money, or blood, and we invite others to support the Red Cross in helping people in need down the street, across the country, and around the world. And whereas the American Red Cross is synonymous with helping people and has been doing so for more than 130 years. Throughout the past year, the American Red Cross launched hundreds of disaster relief operations in the United States to help people affected by fires, floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes. The Gold Country region, which includes Calaveras County and the Mother Lode area, responded to disasters here in California like the Carr Fire and the devastating Camp Fire, as well as disasters in Hawaii, Georgia, and elsewhere. The 24 counties that make up the Gold Country region provided thousands of residents with information and assistance, as well as continuing the ongoing recovery efforts in the aftermath of the Carr and Camp Fire disasters last year. And whereas in Calaveras County, the Red Cross worked tirelessly in 2018 through its single employee and 4 volunteers to support our residents when disasters strike with emergency assistance. In 2018, Calaveras Red Cross volunteers gave food, clothing, and shelter to 167 adults and 36 children throughout Calaveras County because their family homes were devastated by fires. This made it possible for the families to have a safe place to stay and the basic necessities of life as they began the slow recovery process. The Red Cross also provides 24-hour support to all members of the military, veterans, and their families, and provides training in CPR, aquatic safety, sheltering, and first aid. Whereas for nearly 100 years, the United States presidents have called on the American people to support the Red Cross and its humanitarian mission. Our communities depend on the American Red Cross, and because it is not a government agency, the Red Cross depends solely on support from the public to continue its humanitarian work. This is especially important in these challenging economic times, which impact the Red Cross and many people in our communities and across the nation. Chair, I'm looking for public comment.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? George?
Good morning. George Fry. I remember way back to age 16 that I got a lot of Red Cross training to be a swimmer, to be a lifeguard, also for being a person that was a water safety instructor and a handicap instructor. To me, it was very impressive to see the support that the American Red Cross did on the island of Guam. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Bonnie?
I'm just hearkening back to the Butte Fire when there was criticism that maybe the Red Cross didn't perform well enough. To remind everyone, they are very dependent on volunteers and contributions. So I hope the people that have benefited from the Red Cross or have participated in the Red Cross continue to do their volunteer work and the contributions that make them work so well. And I hope that we don't have to rely upon them in this county too often. And I know they respond to other counties when called. Some of our local people went as far as the fire up in Reading to participate in their sheltering programs. So it's a very much give rather than give and take. So, and I hope that we all remember that when we, each year at the end of the year, we make our donations to organizations across the county that Red Cross has kept, in their thoughts.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the board?
Yes, Chair, I do. And something that is not included here, but I think needs to be duly noted, and that is that I can recall personally through the 80s and 90s and all of the major fires that were going on, the one agency that was always there was the Red Cross, and they were helping with firefighter support at that time, as well as the other basic duties that they normally perform. So it's just needed to be included that it is not just about, but they do help the emergency services as well.
Much, and I would like to echo that and thank the Red Cross for all that they did during the fire and all they do for all of our communities throughout there. Dennis, would you guys like to say a couple words before we call the question?
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, I want to thank you and for all the support that you have given the Red Cross, and me in particular. Without your support and the support of the citizens of the community, then we would not be able to do what we do. As mentioned in the proclamation, there are 4 of us in Calaveras County. We have other disaster responders that we have 2 in Alabama and 1 in Mexico at the moment. So we're kind of spread a little bit thin. But we have other Red Cross folks in Tuolumne and in Amador and elsewhere that will come to our aid if we need to. I believe Marty has a couple words she'd like to say on our behalf.
Certainly.
Thank you. It's wonderful that you've chosen to do this. I also wanted to add to what has already been said, that we respond to house fires all the time. Funny how they all seem to start at night, But anyway, the people that are impacted by a house fire are devastated no less than the people in a big disaster. But they're not under the umbrella of the disaster name with all those resources, so they're kind of on their own, but Red Cross is there to help them through that. So just wanted to say that we do that as well. But I also wanted to share with you that I don't know if everyone knows Debbie Calcote, but she is a force to be reckoned with. And she was brought into Calaveras County by Dennis Lewis, who at about a dozen years ago decided that we needed, or felt that we needed, a CERT team, Community Emergency Response Teams, up in West Point. And I heard about that, and I started going, and Charming Husband said, "Why are you going to West Point?" And I said, "Well, because they identified as an issue, and they talk to each other. They're working on solutions." So part of that training, and now we have some really engaged CERT teams in West Point and in Copperopolis. Caroline Steinmist here is a big force of the one in Copperopolis. And so thank you, Caroline. And so part of pulling all that together, he pulled in Debbie Calcote to bring Red Cross into the mix as well. And so I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for those two and a few others. So I wanted to share with you that Debbie received the following email, which I'm going to read to you, from Denise Everhart, who is our Division Disaster Executive. And she wanted all the Pacific Division to receive this. And since we're all in this together, I'd like to share it with the community. On November 8th, the campfire roared through the towns of Paradise, Magalia, and Concal. 99 days later, we closed our final shelter in Chico, California. Over the course of those 99 days, there were over 45,800 overnight stays in the Red Cross shelters, with 10,667 stays in independent shelters. This was an incredibly complex and difficult sheltering operation. Not only did we start with a 27,000 plus person evacuation and unknown wildfire spread, but we dealt with a lack of resources for our clients, norovirus, tent and RV camping, and more. We were creative in our solutions, compassionate in our care, and nimble in our actions. And always, we put the clients first. We worked closer and more collaboratively with our partners than ever before on this disaster. We raised money, involved partners in service delivery, and enabled the whole community to respond. And always, we put the clients first. We dealt with a mass casualty event like the likes of which we have not seen before. 85 people perished in the fire. And we worked with our partners to help find the missing, identify fatalities, and work with the families of the deceased to provide assistance and care. And always, we put the clients first. We gave out more assistance, we gave out more assistance faster than we ever have in California. We worked one-on-one with our clients doing individual case management. We have committed to long-term recovery and continuing support for the whole community. And always, we put our clients first. This was not an easy deployment for our workforce, and we deployed 1,424 Red Crossers. Many of them had already worked numerous deployments that year. The stories from our clients were heartbreaking. Our workforce worked in the smoke and the cold and the rain, slept in base camps and showered in portable showers, dealt with norovirus, and were away from loved ones during the holidays and more. But always, we kept the clients first. We put the clients first. To steal a paragraph from the Red Cross vision, the American Red Cross, through its strong network of volunteers, donors, and partners, is always there in times of need. We aspire to turn compassion into action so that all people affected by disaster across the country and around the world receive care, shelter, and hope. We executed on that vision by doing what we can when we can, something we hear from Dennis Lewis all the time, thanking us for doing what we can when we can. We invite everyone to go online to redcross.org to see how you can help, so that when Red Cross is ready at a moment's notice, you will be also. We're all part of the solution. Red Cross needs your help. Your community needs your help. I would be remiss if I failed to encourage everyone to put a go bag together. Please do it today. Thank you all. Thank you, Dennis and Debbie, for making it possible for folks like me to train and engage in volunteer opportunities that save lives and provide comfort and a safe place to land for our friends and neighbors at their times of most need. So, thank you all. We're all in this together. Let's all go be fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marty. Back to the board. Do we have a discussion or a motion?
I'll move that we adopt a proclamation recognizing March 2019 as American Red Cross Month in Calaveras County.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Stopper. Is there a
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
So now therefore be it resolved, the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors proclaim March 2019 as American Red Cross Month in Calaveras County. We encourage all Americans to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission. And with that, Dennis, would you like to bring your team up here?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Red Cross. Public comment. Madam Clerk?
Public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Thank you. Public comment? Any public comment today? Mr. Wilson, come on down.
Good morning, Board. Good timing, I guess. Anyway, I want to give a big yay, whoopee to Public Works. A few weeks ago, there was a road closure on Pool Station. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be going around through Angels Camp to get to San Andreas for the next 6 months while they replace a bridge. But by God, within 2 days, they had it repaired. And we could go to San Andreas, or we could go to Angels Camp again. I just want to thank those guys for getting out there and doing a good job. Now, again, we turn around and we have more potholes on Pool Station Road because of traffic. We had storms for the last 2 weeks. Rain, potholes. It was like driving on both sides of the road, just stay out of them. But you know what? One clear day, my wife came home last night and said, "Did you call the county?" "No, I haven't done anything." "Why?" "Well, all the potholes are fixed." So I just want to thank those guys. Those guys do a wonderful job. I think I'm going to start a fund down at Goonies for them when they open. Deposit a $20 bill every so often just for a beer run for them. You know, I don't know. Can't give them cannabis. It's illegal in this county. But what the hell. Anyway, I just think it's a wonderful day today. It's beautiful. I don't have to dodge holes in the road. I went to Mather to take a gentleman to the VA hospital last week, and I had to drive up 26 to Ridge Road and then take Ridge Road into Railroad Flat and back over to West Point to get him up there because there was a road closure on 26, the state highway, big slide. There were many slides, but our county people were out there fixing those. Anyway, I just want to thank our local public works guys. They do a hell of a job. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. I'm happy husband. That was a good one. Bonnie?
Good morning, Board. I've been forced to do some purging at my house and get rid of unnecessary papers, and what I have with me today represents 10 years of sitting here at the board on my hemorrhoids and observing and listening. Well, wait a minute. I didn't have them when I started here. Maybe it was sitting here for 10 years that gave me my hemorrhoids. But I started looking, and today's March 12th, 2019, and my first consistent attendance was June 2nd, 2009. And I will tell you probably next week why I started coming here consistently for the past 10 years. But today I'd like to tell you how you can get rid of me forever. Swear to God. I have 4 things that you won't ever have to look at my ugly mug again. The first thing, if you'd all agree to give home care workers a living wage, I'll never come back. Promise. The The second thing that would get rid of me forever, if you could impose a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit on Double Springs, so some of my friends, and I'll tell you about them at a future date, aren't murdered by speeding cars going 60, 75 miles an hour through turns, hills, and dips. And the third thing is, if you could initiate with Caltrans 2 litter cleanup days a year, I would suggest April and October, where all the people in the county, all the service organizations band together, the Democrats and the Republicans working together, the Elks Club, the Rotary Club, everybody goes out and cleans up the highways, our roadways. And I just have to say, I live in Valley Springs, but it is really trashy from the town of Valley Springs to each county line. There is so much garbage between the roadway and the fenceways. It's almost embarrassing. I have about a mile and a half stretch that I clean up myself on the highway, just so I can say I do something here in the county. But I'd like to see an effort countywide to make us look like we keep Calaveras clean, we care about Calaveras, we want to have a good presentation when people come to our county. And I ain't saying it's us, but it might be
Thank you, Bonnie.
the people coming visit. Thank you.
George?
I'd like to ask the Public Works Director, Josh, to give a shout out to all of those folks that have been working on potholes. There was a big pothole on Calaveras Road one day, and the next day it was gone. And I really appreciate them making it safe and the fact that I don't have to go and buy an alignment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any further public comment? Neil?
Good morning. The meetings held throughout the county a couple weeks ago focused on the housing element of the general plan, and they were very constructive. The potential to implement solutions to mitigate the public's concerns is more achievable than any time since 1996. The board is expected to remove governmental obstacles to affordable housing, and those of us left in the burn scar need this to happen. It was clear throughout all 3 meetings that the most pressing issue was how to create affordable housing for everyone, from property owners in the scar to renters that can't afford to live where they work because of the green rush that is vacation rentals. Calaveras is a great place to live and a great place to retire, but diversity of all kinds makes this a richer community. We will benefit the most from promoting mitigation measures that will ensure Calaveras County does not become a monoculture. Planned unit developers have a responsibility to offset the impacts associated with creating communities that are purely homogeneous socioeconomic islands. If 25% of all new developments were required to be truly mixed income, then there may be a chance to bridge the social divide and realize a future of cohesiveness. Adoption of Title 25, Section 8 of the California Building Code could potentially eliminate the largest government obstacles to facing most owners left in the scar. Even though the county received a settlement from PG&E, many residents that were deeply affected have not been compensated. The bankruptcy proceedings could take 2 to 5 years. Many Butte Fire survivors want to rebuild but can't until they reach settlement, and the county must recognize this reality. Utilizing the general plan update to rezone the county to minimize land use conflicts and plan for a future that considers the needs of all residents has the greatest chance of coming to fruition. Co-housing communities that combine residents of different ages, incomes, and backgrounds can exist in both dense and rural areas. Allowing mixed housing uses on parcels of 10 acres or more on a sliding scale of density per total acreage would foster the development of more affordable housing options across all income levels. This is the real crisis we're facing here. The emergency is fewer than, I believe, 100 of the 500 permitted structures have been rebuilt in the SCAR. This is the emergency.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move on to the consent agenda.
Sorry. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Thank you. Board members, are there any items you'd like to pull? Supervisor Mills?
Thank you. Yes, item number 11.
Number 11.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, any items staff would like to pull? Public?
10 and 16.
All right. Seeing no other items, is there a motion to adopt the remainder?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Supervisor Callaway, second by Supervisor Tofinelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 10, I guess.
Item 10, from the from Public Works, approve the 2019 Department of Public Works Capital Improvement Program.
Mr. Segala, do you have a question?
Yeah, Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. Could we have an idea of the cost of this program?
It's right there.
Morning, Chair Garamendi, a member of the board. My name is Joshua Pack. I'm your Director of Public Works. The plan that's presented before you today is a 5-year, $77 million investment in roads and infrastructure for the improvement of Calaveras County. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none? Oh. Close.
Sorry, I'm getting a little old. It takes me just a second to realize.
Okay, I can't see real good either. So.
People blame it on what medication, you know. Anyway, yeah, $77 million for roads. Yes, please, 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 please. Maybe we could get Pool Station paved from the Onito Ranch to Highway 4 instead of potholes all the way through.
Are you talking about Red Hill?
No. No. The Onito Ranch. I thought it was the 1-2 Ranch, but I was corrected.
There's another one.
And I was told, it's right there at where the river crosses the big bridge, the new bridge, right past the cement plant. It's all paved all the way up to there, new pavement. But from there to 4 is pothole heaven. And as long as we're going to allow those big trucks, because we're not going to put those signs back up that say nothing over 7 ton, then we ought to do something with the rest of that. So $77 million, drop in the bucket, especially if you pass cannabis taxes and you start making money off of hemp.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there a discussion or motion?
I don't mind making a comment. Mr. Pack, this is a very aggressive plan. I really look forward to the staff's ability to get around it and accomplish all of these specific goals. What you've done with the staff in the short time you've been here should be a testament to the capability and capacity. And I'm just very happy, very pleased to see this. Sometimes we've got to prioritize, and this is just a great list of priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Good work for everyone, top to bottom. And with that, I'll move
A motion by Supervisor Stopper.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Mills. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 11.
Item 11 is from Human Resources to adopt a resolution authorizing changes to the position control list, range adjustment, and assignment pay for specific classifications for fiscal year 2018-19 mid-year budget effective March 16, 2019.
Thank you. Supervisor Mills.
Yes, thank you. The only purpose is not to discuss the actual changes themselves because these were approved as part of the budget. But we're probably getting to a point where we need to look at going outside and having a broader discussion on all of the positions that we have in our position control list and trying to establish a uniform methodology to what that is along with those pay rate scales so that it's a one-time outside look at what we have. I think it would contribute immensely to employee stability and would give us another view rather than burdening your staff with this work that you're doing on top of the other work that you have. I know it wouldn't be cheap, but I would like to see if there could be an agenda item brought forward. Maybe that's the way to do it, to discuss the possibility of looking at a larger.
My recommendation, Supervisor, is that we bring this up at budget. And not that I disagree with what you're saying, but this is a budget item, that if we want it, then we need to budget for it.
Oh, I fully agree. So, this is just an opportunity to start that discussion, if nothing else.
Question on this, or just?
It's not so much a question, it's pretty much just a comment, a concern.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I'll move this item, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Tofinelli.
I'll second it.
Moved by Supervisor Tofinelli, seconded by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Item 16 is from Economic Development to adopt a resolution approving Amendment Number 1 to the second amended and restated Central Sierra Economic Development District Joint Powers Agreement and authorizing the board chair to sign on behalf of the county.
Al, you had a question?
Yes, can we have an idea of the scope of that amendment? Thank you.
Thank you. Question is to the scope of the amendment.
It's basically letting Amador County back in because they had left prior. It's page 226 of the packet page explains it fairly well.
Supervisor?
Good morning, Chair, Supervisors. Kathy Galino, Economic Development. Yes, the scope is to bring back Amador County into the 5-county jurisdiction of the Central Sierra Economic Development District.
Super. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Discussion or motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Supervisor Stopper.
I'll second.
Seconded by Supervisor Tofinelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Regular agenda.
Item 17 is the approval of minutes from the Board of Supervisors meeting held on February 19th, 2019. This one is separate from the consent agenda merely for the fact that one supervisor was absent and I didn't want it to inadvertently get left on the consent agenda.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any discussion or motion by the board?
So moved.
Second?
I'll be recusing myself on this item.
I'll second it.
Moved by Supervisor Mills, seconded by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. One abstention. Supervisor Tofinelli.
Did you want to take a break now to allow economic development set up?
Oh, yes, I am cranking along through this. We will take a 5-minute break for our next presentation to set up, so we'll watch the clock. Thank you. Welcome back. We are on item 18 and we are set and ready to go. So
Item 18 is from Economic Development to receive a semi-annual presentation from the Calaveras County Economic Development Department regarding economic development activities for the first 2 quarters of fiscal year 2018-19.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, good. Kathy Galino, Economic Development, Calaveras County. Thank you, Board, for having me here today and to give my presentation regarding the last 2 quarters of the 2018-2019 fiscal year, or the first 2 quarters of the 2018-2019 fiscal year. I've been here just a little over a year now, and it's been a great experience. I've learned a lot and would like to update you on what's been happening in the last 6 months. And I have the handouts. I forgot to grab them when I got my laptop, but I will grab them for the public. I believe you have the packets with you. So the mission of the Economic Development Division is to promote business growth, investment, to try and retain businesses and attract new businesses, of course, creating jobs and an economic viability in our county. We also work to work with other agencies and market and work collaboratively with other organizations throughout the county, many of which are here today in my support. Thank you very much. We want to stop the leakage of tax dollars outside of our county by providing goods and services to our communities here in Calaveras, but also protecting our rural, unique ambience of the country living and enhancing our natural resources. So the goals that I've started with. Now, remember, there was not a prior economic development director in the past, so this was a new position. Of course, I do have a lot of experience coming from economic development background, but having lived in Calaveras County for 25 years, I've also been able to see kind of some of the needs and challenges that our community needs. So I began with a list of goals, and these are flexible. They're also, I think, very important, and it's obviously attracting the right business to the right location. Again, we are a small rural county. We're not going to have a metropolis here of huge industry and manufacturing, but there are properties that are appropriate for certain industrial and commercial uses. I also work very collaboratively with my brother and sister agencies to facilitate meetings on behalf of the business community, whether they're looking to develop a property or they're looking at an existing property and maybe a change of use. Part of this also includes having a skilled workforce. As we're learning now, or as I'm learning now, having career technical pathways and a skilled workforce for employers is the #1 thing that businesses are looking at when they come to Calaveras, or they're looking to invest here or grow here. And with that comes affordable housing. This is a very important component that we need to have the ability for workforce to have a place to live so that they don't have to commute outside of the county. And we want them to spend their dollars here and be local. We want to identify business incentives and opportunities that give us a unique positioning for certain business and industry. Of course, we're close to our natural resources, such as our forestries, our water and wildlife, recreation and tourism, and a wholesome quality of life. We want to increase the revenue of good-paying jobs in our communities. So some of the actions that I've taken starting last year and working forward is to market. Being that there had not been an economic development division before, I needed to start getting the word out there. So, of course, developed the website, which has been very, very successful. I've also developed a Facebook, which is kind of the standard social media. I stopped there, no Instagram, no others. But please check it out. We have a hashtag. It's #CalaverasForBusiness. I had some buttons made for those of you that visited me at the booth last year at Fair, and also worked and volunteered at the booth. It was a great way to get the word out. I've also attended several seminars, workshops, the Calaveras Chamber of Commerce events, Visitors Bureau events, local business associations, and the Chamber's working on printing my brochures as we speak. Very excited. That was something that was several months in process, was actually having a brochure. I can talk to people and let them know, but it'd be really nice to have something to leave them with. Working with developers and property brokers, I've made some great relationships with those entities through our Calaveras Realtors Association and other investors. Also reaching not just to domestic companies, but also some international companies. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then working to do direct one-on-one business contacts in the different communities in our county, doing business walks, finding out what's going on in the communities, what their needs are, what their challenges are, and what they really like. There's some really good news stories out there, and I'd really like to be able to develop a newsletter at some point in the future to get those good stories out. So some of the other things I worked on was facilitating the technical pre-application meetings. This has been really, really successful with a number of businesses and, again, sister and brother agencies. A business will come to me not knowing all the intricacies that may go into building a structure or modifying a structure, and it's really nice to be able to host a meeting where I can have all those decision makers in the room at one time and have a clear-cut path for this business to take, or decisions that need to be made at that time. Land use and permitting requirements are probably one of the most challenging for small business owners. It's very technical and it's hard to understand for a small business owner, all the ins and outs. So again, coordinating those meetings, developing fact sheets and flow charts. I know that's one of the things that we're working on internally with the different departments is if a business comes in, what's step A? What's step B? What agencies do they need to coordinate with, and how do those agencies coordinate with each other? Whether it's planning and business license, environmental health, or building, they all play a role together. So that's really good that we're working on that. And then determine where businesses are. There are a couple of businesses that are expanding, and doing those expansions may seem very simple, but it's not. If they're doubling space, if they're changing use, if they're adding a process, and then explaining that information and explaining that process to the business is crucial. Knowing the resources they need. The first thing that I do with businesses when they come in the door is, do you have a business plan? Oh, I have it up here. Well, that's brilliant that they have it up there, but they really need to get it on paper, because oftentimes there might be something they forget or something they didn't anticipate, and that could really set them back on developing and moving forward. And then providing assistance as changes happen. A business may sometimes go, this is a really great idea, I'm going to start doing this, and not realize there's more to it than just starting. So working on incentives, there's a couple of exciting things that have happened in the last year. Finding opportunities for rural businesses through grants and loan programs. This is something that is expanding and changing all the time. Had a great, interesting meeting with Bob Writing from PG&E's Economic Development Department regarding their economic development rate. This is still going in light of their Chapter 13 refinancing and structuring. So this is a great incentive for businesses that want to come here, that are energy users, that want to expand here or stay here. It's a 12% discount on their energy usage. There's the Opportunity Zone, which is in District 2, where we can offer, well, we don't offer, but the federal government offers tax deferrals for capital gains if they want to invest in that particular district, which is a disadvantaged community. We participated in the California Business Gateway. Again, it's another tool to get businesses directed to our county and to the services we provide. The Recycling Market Development Zone was something that the board approved last year, where we can work with the state to offer low-interest loans to businesses that take a material out of the waste stream and remanufacture it into something else. This could be very, very important, especially given a lot of wood and organic waste that are going to landfills, green waste that's going to landfills, and remanufacturing that into a new product. And then working on other incentives as well. So, leveraging resources. This is an important thing that I have been working on and have been looking at various local projects, transportation grants, Prop 68 funding, which was passed last year by the taxpayers, by the voters, pardon me, Proposition 68, looking at different ways to combine local resources with both state and federal funding for transportation projects for some of our historical districts. Actually, we did receive a combined grant through the Central Sierra Economic Development District of $178,000, I think it was, for developing pathways of getting hazard trees out of the forest and manufactured for housing and building products. And there's actually an entity that I'm working with right now that's considering siting here in Calaveras County and setting up a manufacturing facility to do a cross-laminate timber product, which would be amazing. Then another thing that we participated in was looking at a similar master stewardship agreement from what Tuolumne County has with Stanislaus National Forest, mirroring that here in Calaveras County. So that's something that's been looked at as well, or we're still looking at, we being me and us and everyone. There's also the California Block Grant Development Funding. A couple other options here, and these are just the top ones. I will go into more detail on how I'm going to focus this. Having small business revolving loan funds of about $500,000 for small business for startup, for improvements. Again, these are just ideas. There's nothing been approved by the board, and I have not put anything forward. These are just ideas. There's also economic development grants of up to $3 million for infrastructure. Those are like public works projects, providing infrastructure so businesses want to come and invest and develop here. There's also several other grants through Caltrans, through RC, and other leveraging strategies. The big news here is that it's been an amazing year of developing some great partnerships and learning the ropes, learning the folks and the resources, and there's a great team of folks that I work with. So this is kind of a recap. One of my top goals, as I mentioned, is to attract manufacturers that have good paying jobs, that want to invest and grow in our communities here in Calaveras. I'm working with the workforce development of both the Calaveras Workforce Initiative, Mother Lode Job Training, our local community colleges, our high schools. On the Right Track program is a great program that the Calaveras Chamber of Commerce is going to be doing. We start, I think, next month with the first school, which I think is Bret Hart. Promoting career technical path. I know everybody thinks their kids should go to college, but not every kid does. And it's nice to have skills and trades for those folks that want to work and grow here locally and have those certification programs. And then also promote, there's a lot of workshops and trainings that are available to our businesses. Not every business knows how to do QuickBooks or Excel or all the things that may be needed to learn to have your business grow. And the Chamber offers a lot of those courses, as does our Small Business Development Center and the CBRC, which is the Calaveras Business Resource Center. So going forward, creating and strengthening the partnerships that I mentioned. These are just a list of the agencies and organizations that I've worked with, everything from our sister and brother agencies to our fire districts, through our Visitors Bureau, all the business associations. I've been able to meet with each and every one, and some of them have kind of been silent and are now getting re-engaged, and it's great. We're having our business roundtable meetings monthly at each different community In fact, tomorrow I think we're meeting at the Copperopolis Area Business Association at Town Square. Then we're going to do business walks. The following month, we'll be in a different community and working and really talking to the businesses and finding out what's going on. Utility providers, broadband is a huge issue. I think we all know that. We need connectivity throughout our county, and this is going to be big, especially going forward with the Census 2020, which is another project that I'll be working on going forward. So there's my three-legged stool. And I'm never going to stop showing my little stool. So the three-legged stool is very simple. It's in order for us to have a vibrant, sustainable economy, we need to make sure that we have skilled workforce. We need to make sure that we have housing, that we have business development skills to not only attract business, but to really focus on retaining the businesses we have. That's a huge component that gets overlooked. But nobody likes driving down the street and seeing vacant storefronts. And it reflects on us. And so working to make sure that those storefronts are filled with the right businesses and that they're supported. Also doing, some of the other things we're doing is county property assets. We do have a list of assets and properties and looking at maybe divesting from those or maybe doing something else with those. Or, looking at how we're structuring our leases and making sure that we make the best financial decisions for our county. Passage of Measure G, that was a project that I worked on last year, which brought in about another $600,000 to the county, which is the transient occupancy tax increase. It was passed overwhelmingly. And then some of the information that's in the packet, and I just wanted to reference this as kind of business by the numbers. So in the last 2 quarters, I've worked with 39 new businesses, 19 existing, so the word's getting out there, and 10 expanding, which is pretty amazing. So that's up from 21% from the last time I reported to the board. I've attended 14 education and outreach events. These are local events. I think the farthest I've gone is Sacramento for a couple of conferences. 4 grant and funding opportunities, and I said the Census 2020 education outreach is what I'll be working on going forward for the next 18 months or so, and we received a $50,000 grant on that. 6 workforce development opportunities engaging 130 individuals, and continuing support for housing and also mixed-use housing so that there is an affordable component. And then direct marketing and outreach to 8 commercial companies, 2 international companies. These actually came to me through GoBiz, which is an interesting organization through the Governor's Office of Economic Development and Education, and they get these lists of people that are interested, and then they kind of shoot them out to all the different counties, and I scan through them and say, this might be a good fit, this might not. They might have very specific needs. But putting together those proposals, I've gotten pretty efficient at it. They usually have like a 72-hour turnaround, so you got to be quick. You got to have available property. You've got to have the infrastructure they need, the workforce they need, and we'll see. There's 2 out there that I think we have a really good shot at right now. So, continuing collaboration in the future and promoting investment into Calaveras County. Exploring new and changing opportunities. As I mentioned, the Census 2020 is huge. Another project that I worked on was the agritourism workshops. These were exciting. I worked in collaboration with several of our organizations here, the Chamber, the Visitors Bureau, local farmers and ranchers, as well as the UC Davis Extension. They were huge. They actually funded the entire project, where we worked with a lot of farmers and ranchers that want to have a more tourism approach, whether they want to have a wedding venue, whether they want to have a U-Pick or U-Crush event. There is quite an uptick in that. The benefits that I've seen from that are pretty substantial as far as revenue to the farmers and ranchers, as well as also attracting businesses and residents to come and look and play and spend and hopefully move here and raise their families here. Looking at grant opportunities still, needed resources, so I'm going to be leveraging some of the partnerships I have, especially with Central Sierra Economic Development District for grant writing opportunities. looking at an Arts at Campus project where we're showcasing local artists throughout the government center. This is something that Kathy Mazzaferro from the Arts Council approached me about. Looking at the historic preservation district designations for a couple of reasons. One is to preserve these very special, unique parts of our county, but also to receive funding. There is funding available through the Office of Historic Preservation as well as others to help improve these districts, protect these districts. And that's it. Questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Rita?
Thank you very much, but I'm still not clear on some of them. One, the data for potential job loss gain, I wasn't clear how that information came. Do you want me to, I'll just ask you questions and then you can answer. And then how many business licenses were not renewed? So when we talked about new business licenses, I wasn't clear if that included those who are not. And do we have any plans to make getting a business license not so convoluted? I didn't like it 10 years ago and I don't like it today. I mean, that's just an editorial opinion, but so I'm wondering where we are. And the grants, I wasn't clear on the grants for Census 2020. We got a $50,000 grant, and yet that thing said it's $1,950 a year in reporting. I wasn't sure what how the match was on that. I'm very interested in the master stewardship agreement, and where are we on that, or is there something I need to do or the board needs to do to push that? The state CBDG revolving loan funds of $500. We used to have one here in the county, which I gather we don't anymore. So do we have anybody that's part of that, the state revolving loan fund? And recycling. I mean, that's a huge issue, especially since China no longer takes the recycling. And in fact, I had just written Brian Moss an email saying, well, what's happening now to the recycling? Is it going in the landfill? Is it going to where? If Cal Waste can't deal with it, does it come back to our landfill? So I'm real interested in if there's going to be a marriage there. And that's it for right now.
So you got all those?
Yeah,
I think I do. Let's see how good I am.
I wrote it ahead of time.
Okay, so we'll start with the business license, which was the first question I believe that you had asked.
That was the second.
Oh, okay, so how do I track the data? So it's really, I have an Excel spreadsheet. So the way I track the data that you're seeing up there is that it's the businesses that I work with. So they contact me or I have an encounter with them. I do work with Barbara Sullivan's office on obtaining a business license list. About every 3 to 6 months I'll get that list and then I'll see what's new. They are in the process, Barbara's office is in the process of developing a new tracking system. The tracking system that they have now, it's hard for me to use. I'm sure that they're very efficient at it, but I get a list of the businesses and then I will try to reach out to them if possible, or I'll cross-reference the businesses that I worked with. Of course, if a business contacts me, or just even an entity that's thinking about starting a business. So when I have these interactions, I try to track as best I can with my time whether they actually go into business or not. So some of them are existing businesses. A lot of them just have an idea. So they're very, very in their infancy as far as they don't have a business plan. They're still looking for financing. They don't have a site selection. I try to compare that list when I pull it again, from business license. But there is a new process that's going to be going in, I believe, May. Thank you, Stan. That's going in May. It's a license Track It. It's going to be part of the Track It process software. So we'll be able to have a better determination. Now, I can't answer how many get renewed or do not get renewed. That's really a Barbara Sullivan question. But if you want answers, I'm sure we can get you those. Primarily, I'm going off of my one-on-one interactions with businesses. When I say I'm creating these jobs, potential jobs, they're based on when I'm talking to the business, what their projections are, if they're going to be a sole proprietor, if they're going to have 2 or 3 employees, 2 part-time, and by the same account, when a business closes, which there's data on the board packet, I don't like to talk about that, but when a business closes, I'll do a debrief with them and I'll find out what the job losses are from that, such as like Kelly's and so forth. Some of those jobs were actually recovered though at other CVS locations. So I do have an Excel spreadsheet. It is something that I go by when I'm doing my reporting quarterly or semi-annually. And then I try very, very hard not to double count. So a lot of times I'll work with a business and then they'll have another question. And then a couple months later they might have something else or they decided on something. So I don't double track that. I just know that it's a repeat client, so then I don't double count the numbers. So they're actually very solid numbers, but again, they're based on my one-on-one interactions with them. And then I just make sure that as we're going through the process, as they're beginning or coming online, that the first thing that they do, of course, is that they do get their business license. As far as the difficulty of the business license, I have worked to try and make that as seamless as possible. There are a couple additional forms. I have not heard a lot of complaints, but obviously you have concern with that. So that might be a discussion that we have going forward on how to make that less difficult. There's different checks because of the type of industry or business they're doing. There might be additional checks through the sheriff's office or through planning to make sure that they're not doing something, say, in a home business that's inappropriate for that use or location.
We can discuss it later, but I am not happy with having to walk all over campus to get a business license. So.
Okay, let's see. What was the next? Let's see. Here we go.
So.
The MSA.
So one was Master Stewardship Agreement, the Census 2020. If you got us $50,000 from the grant that you applied for, then I don't understand how that dovetails with 1900.
So we'll talk about Census 2020. So this is through the California Complete Count. It's a state, and I'm calling it a grant, but it's not like a typical grant. Basically, when I presented at the board on the 22nd of January, we had the option to opt in or opt out for that. It's strictly for education and outreach. It's to get the hardest to count communities to participate through campaigns with different local organizations, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations. Our library, Nancy's going to be huge because a lot of our census tracking this year is going to be done electronically. And so Nancy's actually looking at some funding for tablets. And then the federal government will actually have navigators that will come out and help with folks if they need help. So the $50,000, and it's based on 6 individual tasks. The first task was getting the Board of Supervisors resolution. The second one is drafting the strategic plan, which is what I'm working on now. Then the third are quarterly meetings with the local state representative. And there's 2 meetings, a quarterly, a final report, and I think that's the 6. And there's milestones. Those milestones, we simply invoice the state for that work that's completed. And that expends the $50,000. It's very different than any other grant that I've ever done. It's it's different. And I am working with Rebecca Callan on how to, in fact, I spoke with her yesterday on how to best track that. I mean, they give us the standard invoicing. I provide the backup documentation on that this has been completed, this is what's going on. And then, as I said, I meet by the telephone, with my local representative. Now, the 1950 that you're referencing, that is the value of each census person in Calaveras County. So the value of completing the census is about $1,950 per person. Over the course of 10 years, until the next census, that's about $20,000 per person. And that can be anything, it's federal dollars for safety, for transportation, for public health, for a whole host of things. And in the past, Calaveras County has underreported, so we've missed out on dollars that possibly could have come. So this big push that I'm working on is to get the word out of the importance of the census, that some people are just not going to want to participate. There's not too much we can do about that. But if a lot of people knew, but if I believe that if people knew the importance of what the census is and what it means, and that also, children under 5 get forgotten about, so they count too in families, and what those dollars would go to, I think people would be much more inclined to complete the census, even though it's going to be mostly electronically. On the MSA, again, the Tuolumne County has a master stewardship agreement for their side of the Stanislaus. I was able to work with the Forest Service, Supervisor Mills, and some other folks on getting that document, looking at it to seeing if it's something that we want to mirror on our side of the Stanislaus Forest. That there has not been a board decision. There's nothing I've been directed or to bring to the board. I know that it's something that's going to be discussed at the March 19th study session, and I can share whatever information I have on that. Recycling.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, the China thing is a bummer. I don't know where the plastic is going. I know that one of the big things in our state is to try and find local markets, try to reduce the contamination of plastics for recycling. Mr. Moss is your key person on that, as far as where is it going. I know that just 2 to 3 weeks ago, I was down at Cal Waste at their facility, and they were still packaging and accepting the plastics. I know I still put out my blue can every 2 weeks.
So you mentioned your list there, I can't remember.
Recycling Market Development Zone.
Yes.
So last year, I presented to the board a request to make all of unincorporated Calaveras County a recycling market development zone. It's a program that is through the state of California that provides low-interest loans, about 3% interest, which is pretty low, up to $3 million for a business that wants to take anything out of the waste stream, remanufacture it into another product. Looking at, organic food waste, green waste, plastics, glass, metals, anything that would be going to the landfill, well, not garbage, but anything that could have a secondary market, and remanufacturing that. This program's available to them, and it's available in this county, in the unincorporated county, any place that they cite. Of course, it has to be an appropriate manufacturing zone.
Thank you.
Supervisor Mills?
Thank you. Kathy, thank you for assisting so many applicants that I know that you've had some challenges, and you seem to have met each one of them when they've come into your radar screen. So I appreciate the work that you're doing to help those people, especially under some very critical timelines. That's really what you do very well. Speaking to the Master Stewardship Agreement, I would certainly hope that this board would consider it. I know we don't want to step on the Cornerstone project. We don't want to step on a lot of other existing projects that are there, but where we can get that, and I think the best term was made was a hug with the U.S. Forest Service. You and I have had those meetings with them. It just provides that additional piece to the puzzle to get local funds and state funds into federal forests to help them where they don't have the manpower, they don't have the financing to do it, and where we can step in and get our own area protected through fuel reduction projects. Speaking to a thing I think that's coming up here very quickly is the alternate daily cover of green waste in January of 2020, and that no longer is going to be counted towards recycling. And I think that we need to get in front of that. And that's why I know that Utica Water had developed their potential biomass project. They got through the interconnection agreements, even had an act of the state legislature to do it. They had their studies done. We need to do something to get some of this green waste converted here locally. If we have to move it tremendous distances, its value's gone. So how do we move forward with making use of these products right here locally and reducing our fuel loading at the same time? And something keeps cropping up over and over again regarding this fuel reduction projects is how do we redevelop our infrastructure in this county to begin to go back to the local operations that we had and the workforces necessary to make them a viable option in the future. We seem to be standing up a lot of projects in our county. I think we have 17 active fuel brick projects right now, or something close to that. I think the Burners Group, you folks were on that recently. But the one thing that I think we hear over and over again is that we just don't have the local manpower and the resources necessary to do it. So we're hiring outside contractors from other counties and other states to take care of our issue here locally. That's bleeding money out of our pockets. So that's the area I think that I see a need to focus in the future, is how do we make use of our resources here in our county locally to benefit our communities and develop our workforce necessary to do that. So maybe it's a statement more than a question, but you and I have talked about this at length anyway. So it's just a matter of, I think, getting the board to identify that as a policy and a direction, and we can do that in the March special meeting.
Thank you. Supervisor Topper?
I agree with Dennis when it comes to natural and renewable resources, providing industry and jobs in the county. This would take a lot of this ends up in our landfill anyway, and crossing the hurdle of getting in compliance with the needs for the state is part of this before it bites us later. You'd brought up vocational schooling, trades, and continuing education, certification, apprenticeship programs are all things that we need to reach for. I think you started was the community development workforce recently that Gary is on that committee, and I think they're working towards some apprenticeship programs and everything that would coincide with that. As to the business license, I mean, there are certain hurdles of not having a one-stop shop within Calaveras County. Personally, I think there's more hurdles to starting new businesses in the county, and we need to possibly look at how the effect and the hurdles that come with things like planned development in certain areas, and how we're going to move forward with that so that applicable businesses for those types of areas are not completely hindered as they try to move forward. And just with my discussions with people with the state, the census, I concur with you 100%. The full and accurate count and getting people motivated to be part of this process is crucial in us receiving the amount of funds that we potentially can in our future years. There's one question I had, and I do like that you did start putting in here compared to last year, some of the job losses, because I think that kind of shows the balance out. More curious about like these businesses, new, old, sorry, I lost my screen here, it went to sleep. In the past year or so, I don't know if we have a full count on lost businesses as to opposed to new ones or ones that have switched over from, they sold from one business to another. So I would like an explanation on how that count's put together so that we, can quantify what's really going on and what real type of forward motion Calaveras County has had. Because, a lot of these businesses, you're putting them down because you've touched bases with them and you've worked with them in one way or another. But, I would like to get a feel for, the positive along with the negative effect and, how we're moving forward. That's the only question I have, really.
Should I answer that now?
If you're okay with that.
Okay. So you are correct. There are some businesses, say, that are transitioning. An example would be Healthy Habit in Valley Springs. It did change ownership. I helped with the former owner and the new owner on that process. I count that as, even though it's two businesses, it's one closing and one opening. That is kind of an interesting nuance. I use an Excel spreadsheet because I'm not really super technical. I know there is economic development software out there that can probably help me better track that data. I try, as I said, very hard to not double count as somebody's growing or expanding. Expansions are a big thing that I have seen this year, such as Gold Country Roasters. They doubled their footprint in Murphy's. It was a great project to work with. I'm working with another business now here in actually San Andreas that's looking to double their footprint as well. So I try to track as best I can the information, good and bad. The closing, thank you, which was something I didn't even want to reflect on, but that's not very accurate on those businesses and those jobs that are lost. Again, it's kind of a hard line to follow. It's also very labor intensive. I try to follow up with businesses at like 2 to 4 month increments to see where they are. Did they actually move forward? Did they actually hire those people? But then I get caught with my phone's ringing and somebody needs help right now. So it's very, I'm looking at ways to improve that data.
Thank you.
All right, this is an informational item, but we will have public comment. How many people are here to speak on this? Would you raise your hand so I can get it accurate? All right, let's go. 5 out of 10, 5 in a line. Thank you.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I want to express my appreciation of the good work you're doing, and seem to hit the job with running, both feet working.
Dan, Al, I apologize. I need to be clear. We need 5 people standing up at a time, and we just keep the aisle clear. Al, my apologies.
Thank you. It seems like keeping track of where we are, where we're going, and where we've been is probably important. And the business license questions that Marita had were very intelligent. And so basically, we want to know how many we have, how many have been added, and how many have been lost. And this gives us a good picture, maybe on a quarterly basis or semi-annually. It shouldn't be all work that the economic director does. I think the county can help in some of that, and the county can provide those statistics. Tuolumne County lost its economic development corporation and its 2 the city of Sonora and the county disbanded it. This resulted from a grand jury investigation which disclosed some very fundamental problems, systemic problems, which we can avoid. One of the problems was the economic development director was buying lunches for the supervisors who were supervising him. And it's like a free lunch, but when the grand jury indicated that there was incredible expenses going on that were not justified, very poor accounting methods, and it was so bad that it had to be disbanded. The question is, I think they're hiring a new one. I'm not sure exactly what's happening. Well, the question is, do we have a link with Tuolumne County anymore? The other questions on green waste and fuel break projects are pretty good ones that Dennis had. One of the things that could be helpful in analyzing the problems that the business community has is input from the Chamber of Commerce, and we're about to get some. Thank you.
Sherry?
May I?
Sure.
Almost afternoon. Good morning. My name is Sherry Roosh, and I'm a school board trustee for Calaveras Unified School District. And I'm coming because the economic development is a big deal for us. What I have for you is copies of the loss of families that we have had in our school district and countywide. They have been significant and are really affecting all of us. So I've also, interesting that you guys bring up green waste. In your packet that I'm handing you, I've also have some possibilities that we can do some partnerships with. As far as green waste, I sent this email to Brian Moss a year ago, but there are two proposals. Whenever you would like to sit down and chat, we can do that as far as what that looks like, but we can help as far as some of the stuff that's going into your landfill. We need, at the West End, we need businesses. We need senior center. We need a veterans care. I love going to Angels Camp and going to the movie theater, but it would be nice to have a park or something in Valley Springs for our kids to do down there. We need jobs that keep our families here. We need to keep our young people here. Our restaurants, we're getting so many new ones. It's so exciting and it's so wonderful, but they desperately need servers and cooks, and we can help. We can partner in that, and we can do some training in some career tech educational culinary training. The On the Right Track program that the Chamber does is phenomenal, and I hope you all attend at least one of them. Just show your face and wave hi. We'd love to see you. You know, our young people need to stay here, and we're bleeding, and so I'm just coming to make you aware. Thank you.
Sure.
Good morning. My name is Christine Noble. I am also I am a new member of the CUSD board, serving my area, District 5. Anyhow, to piggyback off what Ms. Roosh was saying, we would love to do a rebranding of our school district because, again, we are bleeding. We need our students to stay with us. We don't want to continue losing our students. So I'm excited to hear the presentation that was given today. But this is something that we had in mind to do for our school district, where we showcase the highlights of what we do here, what our county has to offer its students. It just highlights different achievements for kids, for our district, for our county, showing how many great opportunities there are for young families to bring those people in. And with that, I think this could be a great partnership for that. Additionally, we need your partnership. Our county is an amazing place to live and raise a family. It is rich and unique educational opportunity. Working together, we can create new learning possibilities for our youth. We have easily identified a couple ways in which our county supervisors can partner to bring deeper educational experiences. Ms. Roosh touched on a lot of different ideas, and one that I'm excited about is the CTE, or the Career Tech Ed classes. She mentioned that the restaurants need workers. It would be wonderful if we could see some of you guys out there talking with businesses, encouraging them to participate in our high schools and get some internships going or bringing their knowledge into the school. They're getting a new culinary program there at CHS, and so that would be a fantastic way to get these students interested in an upcoming field and get into the local businesses to help them out. So thank you for your time, and we hope to hear from you guys. Thank you very much.
Stacy?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Stacy Johnston, Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce. Al, I'm not sure if I'll cover everything you'd like me to, but I am proud to say that the Chamber has worked very closely with Ms. Galino for the last year. And I think it's important to know that economic development is not cookie cutter. It's not a one-size-fits-all in any community. So when you have the opportunity to have organizations and individuals come together, all working for the betterment of this county, and I mean that referencing our educational organizations, our Visitors Bureau, our business associations, our Wine Grape Alliance, and the list goes on, Rotary, Lions Club, it goes on, volunteer organizations. What's beginning to happen here, and it doesn't happen overnight, is you have a coalition, you have a team now in place. The county has a team in place, I believe for the first time in a really long time, of individuals that are working together for the good of the county. Again, I say this all the time, doesn't mean that we always agree, but we're at the table together, and that's what's important. You know, long ago, chambers were known for being the 3 Ps, parties, parades, and pageants. And we've turned from that to the 3 Cs. And it's not just a chamber change, it's a change in the industry. So now we are a catalyst, a convener, and a champion. So it's very important to know and recognize that economic development is just that. And we're all a part of the 3C mentality. Opportunities now that have been afforded to our area, such as our business roundtable discussions, where we go now, first time this month, as a group of county-wide representatives walking amongst our businesses. So it's not just one district is walking in their district. All districts are encouraged to come and be a part of it. So we are a unified voice, hearing from our business owners, learning what their challenges are, so we can address them as a team. We don't look at the West End and the East End as being, they're on their own. It's important that we all embody each other and support each other. So again, with Kathy, I've had the pleasure of working with her, and I look forward to many more great collaborations between us. It takes a while to build these relationships, and she's out there doing it. So good job.
Thanks, Stacy.
I'm Will Moore. I live in Rancho Calaveras, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about this biofuel thing lately. I mean, this county and the whole foothills are producing a lot of biofuel that's going up as forest fires, and we need to find a way to utilize that resource. And what I've been thinking of is coking fuel. Before the days of coal mining, steel was made with charcoal. They're cooking millions of tons of coal now for the steel industry. So if we could use some of that waste plastic Marita's talking about to cook charcoal out of some of this green waste, we could perhaps introduce a little charcoal into the coke fuel. I don't know if there's a real steel mill left in California or not. They may have all been closed. But this is a thought. This is something I've been working on. I'm doing a kind of a low-level, one-man feasibility study. And of course, there's a big pollution problem involved. But somewhere or other, they're cooking millions of tons of coal for steel. So charcoal, biofuel, could replace some of that. There's a potential for a biofuel industry here. Thank you.
Chairman Garamendi, members of the board.
I don't know some of you. I know some of you, so I'll introduce myself properly. I'm Frank Lashinsky. I'm first and foremost a resident of Calaveras County, and I love it here. I've been here for many years. And I'm also public sector manager with Volcano Communications Group. I'm on the Amador Community College Foundation Board of Directors, Amador Fire Safe Council Board of Directors, and Mother Lode Workforce Development Board of Directors. Also want to salute you all sincerely for funding this position that Ms. Galino has. It's very important, especially with the hurdles and challenges we all face retaining businesses in an era of changing technology and automation and the impact that the internet is having on our local businesses. So I am here to support Ms. Galino. We worked with her on various projects, one of them being promotion of broadband services in Calaveras County. Some others as well. We've worked together. So it's been a very successful relationship. And I also want to say to you all that your concerns over business retention and business loss are justified. And you should be focused on that with a rapier sharp blade, because what I see from technology and the impact that it's going to continue to have on our local businesses is very sobering. So we need to get ahead of this curve. We need to educate our businesses on how to leverage e-commerce, how to leverage broadband technology, how to leverage other forms of advanced communications to retain our quality of life and hopefully keep our businesses and promote new ones. Thank you.
I just want to say, as someone who's lived in Amador and Calaveras, Volcano has been so much more progressive in our county in terms of the expansion of your service and the upgrading, and I'd really like to bring you up country and Ebbets Pass, but thank you for what you're doing, because it's harder to work with the servers we have.
Well, Supervisor Callaway, we would love to be able to do that, but as you know, we're restricted to a given area, especially with our telephone company footprint. But who knows what the future holds. So thank you for those kind words. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'm Barbara Schick. I have Half-Ass Adventures, which is a new small business located in Murphy's. And it's been a pleasure working with Kathy. She's been instrumental in helping me try and get the business off the ground. We've had some hurdles that we've tried to kind of get across with the forestry department and just trying to get things moving along. And I've joined the agritourism classes, which have been wonderful and a great resource. Kathy's been instrumental in just helping kind of get things off the ground. It's been a little bit challenging. I thought it was going to be a little easier. We have miniature donkeys, and we're looking at taking people backpacking up in our beautiful area. We've got so many opportunities to get families and kids involved with doing all types of just easy hikes, get them to kind of enjoy this beautiful area. And we're looking at trying to expand to vineyards and lakes and different areas in the community and elsewhere. And I think we've got a great opportunity to just kind of show people what this whole community is about, what our beautiful area has to offer, and hopefully to expand the tourism a bit up here as well. So thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
Could you repeat the name of your business?
Half-Ass Adventures. They're miniature donkeys. So it is what you heard. Got to get a laugh.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You could participate and see it this Saturday at Irish Days. She has a lot of wonderful things planned at the four-way stop.
Chair and Board of Supervisors, Lisa Bolton with the Calaveras Visitors Bureau. As many of you might know, many people's first experience of Calaveras is as a tourist, and those people can often be future residents and business owners. And so their first experience is with the Visitors Bureau, and now we have somebody that we can send those interested people to when they're talking about relocating to Calaveras. We have someone to send them to. And Kathy is amazing. I mean, I have just so loved our working relationships, the collaborations. She is so knowledgeable, she's so amenable, she's so available to people interested in starting a new business. I'm so very impressed with her. I'm impressed with the collaborations
that we have with Kathy and with the Chamber of Commerce, working really well together with these regular business meetings that Stacy was talking about. And I just think the Board of Directors did a brilliant hire when they hired Kathy. She is so knowledgeable, and I'm so impressed with her, and I hope you are too. Anything that you bring up that's of importance to the county, I know that she'll be able to handle for you.
Thank you very much.
Morning again, Board. Bill Wilson, District 1. Economic Development in Calaveras County. That's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? We had almost 1,000 people. I know close to 800 of them came in, applied for business licenses, opened businesses, started businesses, had a business until 7 days into state regulation when 2 of the members on this existing board voted to shut those businesses down. Take all of the investment that they had and throw it in the garbage can. Take all of the product that they had and basically make it unsellable in the legal market, which forced many of those businesses to sell that in a black market. What did we want in Calaveras County? Illegal black market business. We have that. It's abundant. It's everywhere. We can get grants for all kinds of things, especially fiber optic. I know on Circle 20, fiber optic is on Circle 20. It goes up to the tower on the mountain out there. But we can't get better than 56K. Copper wire. That subdivision and most of those 20s were all pulled underground communications. All it has to do is apply for a grant with the federal government for rural fiber optic installation. We could have internet better than we have in the cities. I lived in San Jose, and you know, that was the center of the Silicon Valley, and until we moved in 2009, we couldn't get better than cable. We can't even get cable in Calaveras County, at least not where we're at, because we're in CalTel territory. It's ludicrous. You can't get satellite communication because you can't get an uplink fast enough to set up a connection and keep it. You can download, great. But if you have to communicate with the server, it has to go back out a copper line, down to the telephone communication center in Copperopolis, up to a satellite, and then back down to you, wherever that server is, and then that server talks to somebody else and sends it back to you and sends it back from the satellite. Ludicrous. Just ludicrous. Along with economic development when you shut 800 businesses down.
Bonnie?
Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. Something that I've presented and spoken about before and warrants repeating again is creating a mini industry, which would be a business opportunity with job creations around what I call the poop factory, which would be a composting, locally, centrally located facility where garbage, sewage, effluent, green waste, biodegradables could all be brought and composted. I even thought of a marketing strategy around it, which would be consisting of, well, if there's money available to create such a thing, there should also be a way to sustain it on an ongoing basis. And my thought was every taxpayer have a $5 fee, which would entitle them to a bag of compost, which would be like buying a bag of compost, because bags of compost cost $5 anyway. And the marketing strategy would be to have either a picture or a name of a supervisor for each district, so that when you go to pick up your bag of compost, you could get Gary's Garbage and Green Waste, or Ben's Bag of Compost, Marita's Manure, Jack's Junkie Potting Soil, or Dennis's Bag of Dung. Just some gimmick to get people involved and have a kind of levity around such a thing. But if we're burying opportunity in our landfill that could be recycled and used, we could be almost self-sufficient in keeping our landfill open and lasting a lot longer, and promoting gardening, if nothing else, keeping our soils viable. We know we grow rocks in Calaveras. It would be nice to grow some vegetables and flowers alongside those rocks. The rocks could be used to border the gardens. But anyway, that's my idea as far as, and I kind of heard that there was money available, and I kind of perked up. If there could be an industry created, whether it's county-run, where you had some employees, or it's a private industry created by some innovative citizen that has the initiative to focus on it and promote it and follow through with it and hire some local people in Calaveras. Thank you.
One of the things that I've been thinking about for many years is that if you want to be a magnet for people that have families, then you have to create an environment that will help those people raise their families. As a parent of 5 children, I would want to go to a county that did not tolerate drug proliferation or growing of drugs. I would want to have a school system that honors the opinions of the parents and protects their children. And I personally feel, because of the politics of marijuana, that we have lost a lot of people. There are other people coming in and replacing them because there's a housing shortage in California. And it is a beautiful place to come to live. But the people that we have here and are coming here are different than the people that are being driven out. And I feel really sad, and that a lot of people in Calaveras County think that that we have to tolerate drug proliferation and drug pushers. And I just think that's why we're bleeding.
Thank you very much. How many more speakers do we have? Neil, you'll be our last speaker. Move forward.
Good morning. My name is Mike Glemke, Vice President of CABA, Copperopolis Area Business Association, and co-owner of Miramont Homes. Kathy Galino and her department have been a wonderful resource for our community. Thank you very much. You have a very large campus, as has been referred to in the past, many different departments, agencies, and representations, all there to help enforce the regulatory environment of the state of California, decisions made at the board level, and act in a regulatory environment. You have one entity that is there to help on the behalf of the applicant. I have had wonderful experiences, personal experiences with business applications through Kathy and her department. She is able to walk into the room, help turn on the lights, have a smooth level of conversation and dialogue, bridge any misunderstandings between departments who are focused on their piece of the puzzle, and she's able to help bridge that gap on behalf of the community and growth. By the looks of it today, there's a lot of things on her plate, and they seem to be rapidly growing. I would urge you to continue, please give as much support as you can to her and her efforts that you assigned to her. It's a wonderful boon to our local economy. Thank you very much.
Hello. I am concerned that the job numbers aren't more clear as to how many we've gained and lost. If I had to show that 800 businesses had been forced to close, I probably would not have included that myself. That being said, I don't believe any of those businesses were given the same respect and given any kind of exit interview that I'm aware of that you're giving to other businesses, especially an industry that put $9 million into the general fund. That being said, this is a right-to-farm county. And I heard you say that you're interested in promoting agritourism, but how about promoting agriculture? What is the rural quality of life here in Calaveras? Is it some, pardon the term, but pipe dream that we're going to have manufacturing here? I just think that is a tall order, and won't that change the dynamics of this community and county from rural to more suburban? I think the agricultural potential of this county is so significant, and it's being vastly overlooked. Dealing with recycling issues, the best way to deal with that, because it's so energy intensive to go around and recycle materials, is you stop the inflow in the first place of plastics. And what would be the best alternative to plastics that come from petroleum? I think it'd be the hemp plant. And it is being adopted across the country in places like Wyoming and Kentucky. Here we are today, not considering at all how promoting agriculture in this country can also increase economic development. I feel that was severely lacking from your presentation. I'm sorry to be critical, but there is a lot that's being overlooked here, and we've been whipped for quite a long time, and we're not all going to be here much longer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, with that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Are there any further comments before we close up this item? Mr. Stopper?
I want to thank everyone for coming in and talking today, and for the presentation, Kathy Galino. I want to talk as to Christine Noble and Sherry Roosh. I thank you for coming and doing your presentation from the school board. I'll be looking into this more deeply. Some of the things you said on, whether it's bleeding out or whatever, there are people coming and replacing some of these people, but they aren't necessarily of childbearing age, or they're usually a bit older. But from my district and a lot of Calaveras County, over 70% of the working force travels outside the county for work. These are qualified working individuals that are there's a lot of highly qualified workers within Calaveras County, but it gets to a certain point, the cost to travel to work is exponential, and we lose a lot of qualified working individuals to other areas because they don't have work close to here. And that's when we lose our children at the schools. We lose qualified individuals to other places because it's the type of business that Kathy is trying to work on to bring in here. There are certain areas in Calaveras County, I believe, that those type of businesses do belong, where those type of businesses have been in the past. We don't want one every mile, but there's proper places, and there's a lot of natural resources we can deal with here in Calaveras County that are being produced, and they're filling our landfills and going to waste and rotting on the hills. So just want to say all that.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Mills.
Just very quickly, I know that broadband was brought up, and it is one of our weaknesses on a county-wide basis, but not necessarily a weakness, for instance, in Copperopolis. We have people who are working from their home and programming for NASA that live in Copperopolis because of the broadband coverage. But to expand that out, that is a connectivity issue that we experienced in the Butte Fire. And I think that we need to reflect on that as to how do we get a better coverage map for the county as a whole. And it's very difficult because of our terrain, I understand that. But I know, Frank, you worked on it, and you and I have had long conversations, and there's others like Conifer and CalNet and et cetera. They're all on the same page of wanting to get this done. It's just a matter of how. And I know there's money available to do it, but to some degree, we as a county need to develop our policy statement that clearly separates broadband from the other pieces of the infrastructure. And that is one of the troublesome pieces to this that's holding it back. So I would like to just be sure to reiterate the importance of continuing to get that policy statement rewritten so that we don't look at broadband in the same way we look at cell towers, for instance. That we don't look at hard wiring underground the same way that we do with fiber optic. That they have to have their own language and their own statements, and I think we as a county can promote it best by creating the best policies possible in our statements.
Supervisor Toffenali.
Kathy, my favorite economic development director. I want to focus on you and the job you're doing and have done for the past year. You're absolutely correct. When you came here, you started with nothing. There was nothing in place. We haven't had an economic development director. If we ever did have one, you've done a tremendous job. Just the outpouring of people here today to support you in the first year is tremendous. Hopefully, you didn't pay them out of your budget to say that. But I just want to thank you so much. You've had a great first year. You've started the basis of it. You now have a base to start off of. It's been not easy. You and I have had a lot of conversations. But you've done a tremendous job in the first year. I can't wait to see what you do in the next year and the following years after that. Keep up the good work, and thank you so much for the work you do.
I think if we don't, from the coughing, if we don't move on and she doesn't get a glass of water, we may lose our economic development director. So with that item, we'll close up. I owe everybody a break here, but we're breaking in 20 minutes to go into closed session again. So my apologies to the clerk of the board and all my fellow members who may need a pit stop. But let's just push forward for another 20 minutes and see if how many more of these items we can knock out. So, Kathy, you could break down while we're going. So we will recess this board now, and we stand recess, and we are reconvening as the Air Pollution Control District Board. So, right.
Item 19 is from the Air Pollution Control District to adopt a resolution authorizing the board chair to sign Calaveras County Air Quality Control District Resolution adopting Rule 428 new source review requirements.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. If you're looking at the resolution and the ordinance, you're going, who wrote that? How many fonts did he use? Why is there no formatting? There was a software glitch, and we discovered this. Believe it or not, it's inserted correctly there, but it spurts out wrong. I brought 20 copies of the properly formatted document, if that, I don't know.
Give it to Dan.
Right here? Okay. All right. The Clean Air Act requires that any county designated as non-attainment for national ambient air quality standards must adopt this rule. Calaveras County has been designated as non-attainment under the National Ambient Air Quality Standards for ozone that drifts up from the valley into our county. So, the requirements for this Rule 428 will apply to new construction or major modification of major sources currently defined as sources emitting 100 tons or more per year of a regulated pollutant. We currently have no sources like that in our county, and so we are requesting that you adopt the resolution and this rule so that we meet federal and state requirements.
So, Brad, just so I'm clear, so this is a state rule, state requirement. We're not negotiating this, we've got to do this.
It's required to do it, yes.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Any public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Is there a further discussion or a motion?
I'll move this item, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Tofinelli.
I'll second it.
It is seconded by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Question.
Sorry, excuse me, before we adjourn.
This is a 30-day review, so are we introducing it and then adopting it, or are we adopting it today?
We're adopting it today.
Okay.
The 30-day review is already
Brad,
taken
go to the microphone.
Okay.
I'm sorry. The 30-day review has already taken place. So
Okay,
it would be,
got it. Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. Nothing further. The Air Pollution Control District Board stands adjourned, and we are reconvening as the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors. Welcome back, everybody. Item 20.
Item 20 is from Information Technology to authorize the County Administrative Officer to sign 5-year Internet Service Agreement with Utility Telephone Incorporated for a monthly contracted cost of $2,970 plus regulatory fees and taxes for an estimated total monthly cost of $3,385 and a total annual cost of $40,620 for a total 5-year cost of $203,100.
Good morning, Board. Stan Moore from County IT. We've had a 2-year agreement in place for almost 4 years now with Utility Telephone for our internet services. The amount of bandwidth that we have is 150 megabits of our service. We brought the service in. That amount was a significant upgrade over where we had been, and it served our needs quite nicely. We are at the point right now where we have not run out of capacity, out of bandwidth, but we're pushing up against it, and we anticipate that the bandwidth that we've got in place will no longer meet our needs as we go forward. What we are proposing is a new agreement that will increase our overall bandwidth. It will also give us diversity with multiple paths. Currently, we have a single path from out of the government center to Stockton, at which time it gets diversified. It puts us at risk for any of a number of events that could take place that could disrupt our service, and it would take as long as it would take to be back up and running again. We've had very limited outages in the last 4 years. It is always a possibility, whether it's a construction accident, a wildfire, there are a number of things that could disrupt the service. The proposal that we have in front of us is to bring in 2 different services, different paths that would come into San Andreas and even into the government center. Each one of those paths in and of itself, each one of those services would be more than we have in total today. We would have 2 250 megabit services, so a total of 500 versus the 150 that we have now. Should there be a service disruption, remaining service would take care of all of our needs until such a point in time that both services are back up in place. So we're looking at increasing our bandwidth. We're looking at improving our uptime, if you will, from a continuity of operations standpoint, which is obviously very significant. The amount or the ways that the county uses the internet and the volume that the county uses the internet is such that even minimal downtimes are quite significant in terms of potential challenges to the business being able to conduct normal operations. Many of our day-to-day services in different departments are on hosted systems that vendors run from their data centers, from the cloud, if you will. So between the systems that we're running that are hosted elsewhere, between normal operations that utilize the internet, between looking in the future, we will be doing a lot more backing up of our systems and data off of the premise, off of the county. That could be to a cloud base, that could even be to another county. Internet services are they're a requirement anymore. We simply cannot be in a position where we would lose our internet services. The costs are going up. The costs per megabit service of internet service are going down dramatically. This is going to cost us an additional $12,000 a year, roughly, than what we are paying today for our internet services. Those costs get spread out to the departments. The departments fund all of this. We charge back to the departments on a monthly basis for their telephone use, for their internet use. This increase in cost will cost the departments approximately an extra $1.60 per month per PC that they have connected to the county internet. So everyone will pay. The upgrade in services will kick in at by the time we get to the full 500 megabits. That will take place at about the 1st of July. So any increases to the departments will not be seen until we are into the new budget year. We're proposing doing this with Utility Telephone. They are the same company that we have been doing business with for a number of years. They have provided very good service, very good quality, very good engineering skills to the county, and we are proposing that we move forward with doing this 5-year agreement with Utility Telephone at the prices that we've talked about. Questions from the board?
Questions from the board? Ms. Hopper?
During the Butte fire, how long were we down on service?
During the Butte fire, we did not have outages with the internet.
Okay, but in other instances we have. So
but they have been minimal.
Okay, but there is a lost production during that time.
Yes, and if we would have it down now, you would see many services, including county financial system, that would not be functional.
Okay, that's good to know. So essentially 250 megabits is more than enough for the county to function on, but you're creating redundancy in the fact that we have a second line come in during those downtimes of one line of service, the other one will back it up so that we don't have those downtimes for production.
That's correct, Supervisor, and they will both be operational all the time.
Okay.
But if one drops, those packets switch over to the other one immediately.
Thank you.
Supervisor Mills?
Yes, thank you. Just a matter of clarity here. When you signed the contract, or we signed the contract in April of 2015, and we knew about what our demand load was at that point, and saying 150 was a good plateau to work to. And now over the last 4 years, we've seen there is an exponential increase in service demand. Are you thinking then that the 250 might rapidly be reached and that the 500 will start to make use of both sides of that rather than, because we're going to see a higher load than probably the 250 over the course of the 5-year contract? Yes, there will be some of the load that we will use, the backups, for example. We can schedule those off shift. That will help. Right now, it seems like 250 will take us for a significant distance in the future.
At the 150, that covers our needs most of the time. We see spikes where we get up into the 120, 130 range. Board Tuesday is a day where we will see spikes. It is not a straight line progression, so it is difficult to say when we will hit that. And in many cases, depending on what you are doing, you could be downloading a very large file, and that pipe is going to take, in order for it to be efficient, it's going to take as much as you will give it. So there will be times, even with 250, where we will see spikes depending on what that load is going to be. If you take a look at it over a number of minutes, hours, over the whole day, 250 will get us quite a ways down in the future. 500 will especially. The 250 is more significant in those rare cases where we would have an outage.
Appreciate your response.
Further questions? Supervisor Stopper, you have another question? All right. This is a action item. Any public comment on this item? Mr. Wilson.
Internet. Yeah, damn right you need it. You could use a satellite communication download link here and then 250 megabit links coming from either side of the county. And you'd probably be good for some 4 to 5 years. The average cost of a megabit in Northern America is $1.11 per megabit. We're paying a little bit more than that for this, I guess, but we're rural. We're not New York City or Baltimore or Chicago or San Jose. Over the years, we need better communication links. Redundancy has always been. When I was in communications, I worked for Varian. We were doing satellite communication in the 80s. We did the Johnny Carson show live from New York via satellite from Burbank in the 80s. I was on site in New York for that at NBC. I was on site at CNN when they launched the shuttle. It blew up. I was also on site in Vernon Valley, New Jersey when they shot the shuttle off the next time, and it didn't blow up because we had a correction link up there that they could do something. Communication. It's all communication. We should have fiber optic running throughout this county. We had fiber optic in the 80s. That was part of my college course, was to make fiber optic communication link between an 8080 processor that was in a briefcase and a cassette recorder. We had a fiber optic link for that communication. That was before they even knew hard drives were out there, or we started making hard drives. Now we got hard drives you carry around in your pocket, called them thumb drives, 128 gigabytes. God, what I'd give for 128 gigs in 1980. Anyway, yes, give this man what he needs, please.
Thank you. Any other further public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Further discussion or a motion?
I move this item.
Moved by Supervisor Callaway.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Mills. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We are going to go into closed session now, and we will reconvene this public meeting at 1:30. Does that sound right? Did I skip something? Oh. Excuse me. We're going to read item 3 and do public comment for number 3 before we break. Madam Clerk.
So item 3 on the closed session agenda is threat to public services or facilities pursuant to Government Code Section 54957A, consultation with Captain Jim Macedo of the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office.
Is there any public comment on this item? Will, are you standing up for public comment or heading out to lunch? All right, seeing no public comment, we'll bring it back to the board, and we stand in recess until 1:30. Public meeting. Thank you. Welcome back to the Board of Supervisors meeting. We are on item 21.
Item 21 is from Agriculture, to conduct a public hearing and adopt a temporary countywide moratorium per Government Code Section, or Government Code 65858, prohibiting the cultivation of industrial hemp until the impacts of such cultivation and the feasibility of reasonable regulations and fees can be assessed, and find the ordinance exempt from CEQA.
1 second. We are going to open a public hearing on this, and the public hearing is open. Kevin? Thank you very much, Mr. Scott.
Yes, thank you.
First, the public hearing is closed, and we will finish this agenda item.
So, item 3 on the closed session agenda, threat to public services or facilities pursuant to Government Code Section 54957A, consultation with Captain or Under Sheriff Jim Macedo of the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office. There was no reportable action taken.
Thank you very much. So, we are opening a public hearing on this item. Mr. Wright.
So, as you know, Calaveras County has a history that's unique as far as our history of cannabis goes. We are a small county that was out ahead of the state cannabis program, and consequently, we suffered a backlash swing in sentiment, and we currently have a ban. As we regroup and focus on a less impactful cannabis program, I am recommending a temporary moratorium on hemp cultivation until our cannabis regulations are in place. Currently, CDFA has a regulation at the Office of Administrative Law that is pending that will require the Ag Commissioner of a county to register hemp growers. This regulation may take effect by April 3rd or earlier. CDFA has requested immediate implementation of the regulation when it is allowed. This regulation will establish a fee that the Ag Commissioner will collect and register the hemp grower. The reason for the urgency is the fact that, okay, this could come about by April 3rd, and our current ban does not include hemp. So the cannabis laws are in the Business and Professional Code, Section 26,000. But the hemp laws are in the Food and Ag Code, Section 81,000. The Food and Ag Code laws are much less restrictive than the cannabis laws. With hemp, there is no state license, never will be a state license. There is no background check, never will be a background check. There's no limit on acreage. They can grow as much as they want. And there is no restriction on altering the land. So once a hemp grower has a plot of land that he GPS's and tells the Ag Commissioner where it is, he can alter that property. There's no oversight from the Water Board. Okay. Now, one of my concerns about all of this is the appearance of cannabis and industrial hemp. Many people are under the impression that hemp is easily recognized as something different than cannabis. But the only difference between hemp and cannabis by definition is the fact that hemp has less than 0.3% THC. The cultivation of hemp has kind of morphed over the past few years. When the state first proposed their law, hemp was grown as more or less a field crop. Male and female plants were scattered. It looked like a field of alfalfa, basically. And the plants were grown for either fiber, or conceivably was going to be grown for either fiber or for the seed from the oil extracted from the seed, or to eat the grain. But that has morphed over the course of 2 or 3 years to where the law has actually changed. Now we have the passage of SB 1409, which allows the cultivation of single plants. Hemp is single plants. And really, it is for the purpose of extracting CBD oil from the bud. So individual plants will be grown in pots just like our normal cannabis, but for the purpose of extracting CBD oil. Unfortunately, CBD oil, although there are some legal uses, it's not legal according to the Food and Drug Administration or the California Department of Health to be used as edible. So we have a plant that looks exactly the same as cannabis that that our law officers or sheriffs are going to have a hard time distinguishing just by looking at it. So, as I said, the only way to tell the difference is to take a sample and check for the THC values. This can only be done during the last month of its growth. So during the last month of its growth, and these regulations have yet to be promulgated, but at some point during the last month of its growth, maybe the Ag Commissioner, it's not exactly clear, but it could be the Ag Commissioner, needs to go out to these sites and take a sample, send them to a laboratory. The laboratory has not been established, what laboratory that might be, and see if that percentage is below the 0.3 before that product can be sold. So it's a very small window. Now those regulations have yet to be formulated, as I said. So CDFA is kind of rolling these things out piecemeal because they want to do something this year. The industry wants to have plants in the ground this year. So in a way, they've done it kind of backwards. It's kind of like the regulations are coming as we go. So the first regulation is the Ag Commissioner shall register. The grower will pay $900. The Ag Commissioner then keeps 15% of that, sends the rest of it to CDFA. So the other regulations may be developed later on, which will include sampling and testing and clarification of ag research institutions. That's something else I haven't talked about. And finally, in the law itself, there's nothing in the regulations that the CDFA is proposing for the approval of destruction methods should the THC levels post higher. As you know, commercial agriculture is allowed in rural residential areas because there's no limit on acreage, no background check. The nuisance complaints and groundwater impacts will be exacerbated. So instead of having cannabis on a half acre, you're going to have hemp on as much acres as the person is able to put on that parcel. There's other things that are kind of wrong with this program, state program. One of the things has to do with the federal regulation. We all know that, well, you might not know, but the 2018 Farm Bill actually decriminalized hemp. So on a federal level, hemp has been decriminalized. However, that's as far as that law went, and the feds still need to develop a baseline by which state programs will be regulated, their programs will be evaluated and regulated. So that has not been done, and that's at least a year away. So the California can anticipate that they will have to conform to the federal standard, will probably have to change some of the things that they have in their current law, especially dealing with dealing with agricultural research institutes, which in California law is not well defined, and they are also exempt from many of the regulations that are posted in the hemp law. In other words, they're able to grow hemp in excess of 0.3%.
Sorry, could you say that again, Kevin? I'm sorry, could you make that statement again? I didn't understand.
Say that again?
Could you say that again?
Yes. There's a thing called agricultural research institutions. And in the California law, it's not defined as narrowly as it is in federal law. And because of that, in the California law, any organization doesn't have to be an institute of higher learning. It's just any organization that does agricultural research is considered a research institution. So there's a large window of people who might qualify for that. And I have heard instances that I can't corroborate, but just from talking to people, that in other counties, people have been showing up with a certificate that says they're a research organization and they wanted to grow hemp over 0.3% as part of their research organization's experiments. So that will probably, but on the federal level, it's actually bona fide. It says, you know, if you're a research organization, you're an institute of higher learning. So that's going to have to be, the California law probably will have to be changed. So those are some of the problems. I don't want to belabor it. You can read through my report that I had there. It's pretty extensive. But as same with cannabis, we know that there will be individuals who will try and grow cannabis under the guise of hemp, compounding the sheriff's already difficult job. So I believe a moratorium on hemp is necessary so the sheriff can focus on enforcement of the current ban, which is going to be especially important this year because we have no legal cannabis grows. So anything out there that you see in green when you fly over your drone is going to be an illegal grow. I believe that it's important that the sheriff is able to identify those grows much easier this year. And if there's industrial hemp growing out there, he's going to have a harder time. But if he can just, if we have the moratorium this year, he'll be able to see where our illegal grows actually are, pinpoint them, and be able to do a much better job of enforcement, which is going to be important not only for the ban, but for the coming years when we are trying to develop a cannabis program that will be supported by the citizens of our county. The rest of it is in there. I'm sure you've all read it. And I can take any questions you might have.
Questions from the board before we go to public comment? Supervisor Mills?
So this is going to be moving hemp from the DEA over to the FDA in the federal level?
Excuse me?
This is moving hemp over from the DEA and their control to the FDA?
Yes.
At the federal level?
Yes. I believe so.
I don't recall when the previous board made a decision to ban that we actually identified the subspecies of cannabis that was being banned.
Yes, I addressed that. Our current ban does not include hemp. When we did the ban, we relied on the definition in the Business and Professional Code 26,000. And in that definition, there's a phrase that excludes hemp.
So only because we have that section of the Business and Professions Code delineated, that's how we got to this point, as you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It sounds like another work in progress for the state.
Yes, sir.
Does the state or the federal level deal with the odor issue that is just as prevalent with this form of cannabis as it would be with the cannabis indica?
The hearsay that I have from people who are familiar with it say that it has the same odor.
Okay. So that's another issue that would have to be taken up as part of any discussion of having it, especially in a residential neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
So if we're in a right to farm situation, because it's now defined as an agricultural product federally, what are we going to do?
Well, you know that our right to farm ordinance isn't set up quite that way. If there's already a residential area there and an enterprise comes in and it causes a nuisance, that doesn't cover our right to farm ordinance.
Okay.
It's for established. You told me that.
Yes, I was. That's why I brought it up. Mr. Maurer? Okay, I thought maybe I was seeing an agreement there with what we were talking about.
He's neutral.
He's neutral. Okay. I understand what you're talking about. I just wanted to be sure and be clear of, because we've had urgency ordinances in the past. Not all worked out the way we'd like to have had them work out. I'm a little cautious about wanting to create another urgency ordinance without having a very clear understanding in the public side of what is the emergency, what's the nature of the urgency and the need to move quickly on this particular issue. That
well, the urgency is that the regulation for the Ag Commissioner to register these people and then kind of legitimizing their ability to start their growth cycle.
And then we'd be stuck with, from my side, where is our cost recovery mechanism going to be built into any discussion we have? Because this board's never discussed it.
We would have to...
Bless you, lady.
Right. Well, if we were going to go ahead with it, we would have to come up with a series of fees. The CDFA is going to remit some of those funds to us, but it's not going to be enough to cover the cost of the program. It never is. And also, as you know, that if we have to go into a situation where we have to destroy a crop or take other hard measures for it, and we're just left holding the bag with the land, it never works out well for the county.
So we could be ending up with environmental damage. We could end up with cost to recover. We couldn't recover costs to eradicate. All of those things that we've talked about before.
Exactly. So make this clear, I am not against industrial hemp as such. I'm against a premature program. To my thinking, and a logical way of thinking, is that the county has old business that it needs to address one way or the other for finally and forever. And then, once that is done, we will have parameters that we can say, okay, now we have what we need for cannabis. Now we can go and say, okay, well, what are going to be the buffer zones for industrial hemp, at least contemplate that program.
I appreciate your candor on it. Thank you.
Ben, Rita, did you want to go next? Ben?
I just want to say that in section 3 of what's ahead of us, that it says in section 3B, cultivation of industrial hemp in violation of prohibitions articulated in this interim ordinance constitutes a public nuisance, and violations may be enforced and abated in the same manner as prohibited cannabis cultivation is enforced under 17.95 of the Calaveras County Code. So I think that answers part of your question there about...
Doesn't answer all of it, and thank you for
part of
bringing it up, because if we are going to eradicate, but we're not recovering costs, who's going to foot the bill? I would like to see some kind of measure inserted in there if you're going to go that route to ensure that we are able to place liens on property as we do with nuisances, and that we're going to continue in that direction.
I just wanted to clarify, because this is declared as a nuisance, I mean, 8.06 and the process that code enforcement would pursue would be applicable in this situation.
Okay.
The section that Supervisor Stopper just referenced would be for fines. That is separate, and you don't lien property for fines, but certainly the county would be able to lien property for the cost of abating a nuisance through code compliance.
Thank you.
One, I think it's very disingenuous of the state to be doing this piecemeal, considering the drama we've had over cannabis in the state of California. So I know, or I understand you're on some ag committee for the state. Isn't there anything we could be doing with our state legislatures to kind of put the brakes on this versus having CDFA roll out the rules in a very piecemeal fashion?
Well, Marita, the RCRC has already commented on that, and they are in the process of trying to amend the law as far as that goes to make it clear that of the county's right to regulate.
Yeah, because they're taking away our land use authority, which is...
Yeah, they're trying to make sure that our land use authority is clear.
Now, you said that the fee has been established, or it will be established, and, I mean, you said 15% goes to the county and the balance to CDFA. Is that a given, or can the county set its own fee structure? Because I read the law, it wasn't clear either.
Well, of that $900, 15% is given to the county for administrative costs.
Okay.
And then the 900 goes to...
The balance.
Yes, the balance of the 900 goes to the state, of which the state may send some more of that back to the commissioners in the form of some kind of a contract to regulate the industry.
To regulate the industry. And we talked about being 1 year away from federal law, but ever since the Farm Bill went in, we have hemp growing in other places across the United States, and I'm assuming those states have not had their hemp rules or regulations approved by the federal, whatever department it is.
I think that's true, but you don't forget it's Mitch McConnell's state, so he might have a little pull there somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I do like Mitch McConnell. I also, in trying to understand this, there is an anatomy difference between marijuana and hemp. So when I looked at the pictures, there was visually a difference in the size of the leaves and how thin or the stickiness. So it would seem to me that code enforcement would be able to tell the difference. The problem is does that hemp have over .03? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Well, that would be the case if we were talking about normal industrial hemp. But nowadays, with the passage of that last bill, I forgot what the number was.
1409.
It allowed the culture of individual plants and clones, of hemp clones. So the difference between what a hemp plant looks like and what a cannabis plant looks like is becoming less obvious.
The other thing you hadn't brought up, or I didn't hear it, was the cross-pollination, and I'm hearing different stories. So if the cannabis industry is on our calendar now to try and come up with a decision, then we would or should be concerned about the location of hemp farms? I mean,
well, it would depend. You know, there's a lot of the new. If you're talking about new age hemp or the growing CBDs, they're probably going to try to get rid of all their male plants. But if you're talking about old age hemp, where you have growing for fiber and maybe not individual plants, where they're not going to be tending the individual plants and picking off the male buds.
could we require them to allow only female plants?
It would be difficult.
I mean, that's not, we're not setting up rules today, I understand that, but I was just...
Well, maybe some place down the future that the hemp industry will be so refined that if they're growing just for CBD oil, there will be no male plants. But I'm not an expert at any of that.
Okay, I'm not either. I'm learning more than I want to know. So as I understand it, assuming if the law goes into effect in April.
The regulation.
Excuse me, thank you. The regulations go into effect in April, and RCRC has not been able to get the legislature to put a stop on it. Then you would be required to issue, what is it you'd be issuing?
The registration.
The registration. And then people could grow hemp really anywhere they wanted to within Calaveras County.
That's zoned for commercial agriculture.
That's zoned for commercial agriculture.
Which could be RR.
So, like we have commercial vineyards on RR.
Correct.
Okay. I guess my question would be to the planning department, can you do commercial ag product, whatever that is, what would be the minimum acreage size on RR? Sorry, that's okay, Mr. Mauer. Oh, yeah. Okay, so if you're allowed to grow a commercial product, i.e. ag product, on RR land, is there a minimum parcel size that you could do a commercial business? Because Mr. Wright said you could do commercial, he can issue a registration for commercial hemp, which can be done anywhere in this county that we allow commercial agriculture. So is there a minimum parcel size?
We do not have a minimum parcel size. There's some discrepancy in our code about the intent of the rural residential zone. It allows commercial agricultural uses by right, even though the purpose statement says it's supposed to be secondary to the residential use. And since we don't actually issue permits for agricultural activities. Someone could come in and just start cultivating any agricultural crop, whether it be hemp or grapes or almonds or whatever, in the rural residential zone. We've got into some conflict on that issue in the past couple of years. The only places we don't allow commercial agriculture are in our commercial zones and our the R1 and R2 and R3 zones. Commercial agriculture does require a use permit in those zones.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
One other question, Mr. Wright. If I understand the state rules, or proposed state regulations, excuse me, that the grower has to get his or her seeds from an approved seed cultivar. So if they get them from an approved seed cultivar, then we would know that would be part of the registration process. They have to tell you what their parcel number is and all this other stuff that were in the regs and where they get their seeds. So then we would know that it is an industrial hemp less than 0.03. I feel like maybe I'm missing something in the conversation.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I can deal with perhaps. I mean, okay. Well, when the chair's ready for comments, I'll make comments. Thank you. I appreciate the work you've done.
Okay. I do too. Mr. Wright, I'm very familiar with hemp. It was King George required it of the colonies to produce a third of their crops in hemp for cordage and fiber. So it's obviously a very old product in the United States. My question is, goes to the musical Oklahoma, about the cowboy and the farmer being friends. My understanding from the articles that I've been reading, it's very difficult to have a cannabis industry next door to a hemp industry just because of the cross-pollination, and that pollen can go a long way. Are they mutually exclusive?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Like I say, maybe in the future we'll be having just female hemp plants grown just for CBD. But at the present time, I would say that there's a concern with the cannabis industry having a hemp grow next to them.
Would you describe the hemp industry versus the cannabis industry as hemp being a high-volume, low-value commodity and cannabis being a low-volume, high-value commodity?
In the past, I think I would do that, but in the future, I might not.
Okay, thank you. Ben, did you have another question?
I do have a question.
So
let's take this down the road of cross-pollination. How many generations, if you had hemp growing next to marijuana indicia, would it take for the indicia to no longer have its capacity for the high THC level? In other words, would they automatically start seeing seed crossing over and creating a problem for them?
Yes, I think they probably would start seeing that, but I think there would always be some plants that had high THC and some plants that might have low THC.
Okay.
But I'm not a genetics expert on any of that.
You may have to be by the time this is done. No, I just was concerned about the cross-pollination issue, if that's one of those things.
Well, the first issue is that the cannabis would have seeds. The cannabis bud would now be pollinated. So your first issue is that you have seeds in your high-value cannabis grow. So that totally lowers your value of your cannabis bud. So that's in the first generation. In the second generation, you'll start to see a lower of the THC. In the first generation, you see seeds, which people don't really want to sell, bud that's full of seeds.
Got it.
Possibly in your day, it was okay to have seeds, in the baggie.
What's your day?
I will tell you,
I can answer part of that question, I believe. I've done extensive research and read back on it, if you don't mind.
I'll let you finish, then I got one more thing. Go ahead.
Okay. There's multiple strains of hemp. Some produce more CBD than others. Others are made and bred specifically for fiber. They've opened up when they used to plant hemp, they would plant it very tightly so it was grow smaller and be softer so they could process it now. With the new laws that are being put forth by the federal government and actually California, they've let you space it out now so that you can produce a plant that looks more like a cannabis plant now, because it's actually got more buds on it and has the CBD predominantly in it. Now, with studies from Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, they're saying that the pollination from hemp, because of the extravagant size of those crops and them not always being able to go through and weed out all the males on them, travels tens to hundreds of miles sometimes, and people are actually getting their stuff pollinated a long ways away by hemp. And so at that point, you're not worried about the cannabis plants pollinating the hemp plants, because they already take all the males out. It's a much smaller crop. They refine it. They lose their potency on it if it gets seeded, so they go out and they get rid of all their males. So it's only a one-way type of thing where the hemp pollinates the cannabis plants for the most part, and not the other way around.
So in my history and background of being in the Midwest, because that area from the 1850s through the early 1900s did grow hemp, we've heard in this chamber the word ditchweed, because it did travel great distances and ended up in ditches along the roadside. So hemp was a very common thing even in the Midwest today to see it along the roadsides. But you don't see cannabis to that level back there along the roadsides.
Correct.
So that's something they're going to struggle with in the Midwest for a long time, because they've just been around it so long. Hemp is something that even Wisconsin's working on right now. I know Wyoming and some other states are working on it as well. But to me, it's a work in progress, and I'm very fearful that we would get involved in something to which we have no regulatory capability. We don't even understand what we're getting into, and we haven't had the time to put anything together.
Yes. And, I think my biggest fear is the 0.3% testing of the 0.3% hemp. It can only take place during the last 30 days before harvest. So, those regulations haven't been well thought out yet. They haven't been written yet. And if it's going to be up to the Ag Commissioner, let's say that we actually had a hemp industry in the county and there were 150 hemp industry people. The Ag Commissioner would have to run around to 150 different sites, take a sample, submit them to a as yet unknown lab, and then get back the results, and then go from there. I think they're actually allowed two tries to make it under the 0.3. But let's say they didn't. Let's say you had 25 that didn't make it, then you have 25 crop destruction cases on your hand.
You'd need more than one more FTE, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all.
Thank you very much. There's no further questions from the board. We will open this for public comment. Is the hearing, we're going to stick to the 3-minute rule. Al, you're first up.
I checked, make sure I wouldn't jump in front of somebody
else. If you want to speak, just keep things moving. 5 in a row, no more than that, if that's all right.
And no profanity.
Pardon me?
No profanity.
Nope.
All right, I'll try to
Careful,
follow.
Al.
I'll try to follow that.
I haven't heard you swear up there yet, but I'm ready.
Al Segala. I'm amazed at how little I know. I thought I knew something, but I realize I don't. There's several questions that I'll sit down after I ask them. how much land is needed to economically grow hemp? You need 100 acres, you need 1,000 acres, 20 acres. It's a low-price product. It seems like you need more land in order to make money on it. What are the consequences of doing nothing? I think we're talking about maybe people putting in farms without sufficient regulations, or I'm not sure exactly what the consequence would be. The conflict between hemp and pot. Has anybody thought about putting a food dye tab in the ground where one of the other plants grows, and that plant will have a different color, and then you don't have to test it? That's just an idea. Do we have hemp farms in the county now? If we do, how big are they and how are they doing? Thank you.
Very much. Will?
I'm Will Moore from Rancho Calaveras, and I don't understand much of what I heard here today, but I think the proposal is to create an emergency ordinance for a problem that doesn't exist. In other words, it's a solution looking for a problem. I can't do it now, but I took a couple viticulture classes at Napa College years ago, and the ag commissioner in Napa County can drive by a vineyard and tell you whether that's Chardonnay or Sauvignon. And anybody who can't tell a hemp grow from a marijuana grow doesn't belong on that job. I had something else to say, but I forgot what it was.
Well, Mr. Wilson.
What's the difference between them?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Oh my God, the sky is falling. In 2018, the federal government made hemp legal. Calaveras County, once again, wants to make it illegal. We do not want marijuana. Now, these people back here, I'm sure are going to get up here and tell you how evil it's going to be. But you know, a lot of law enforcement wishes for cross-pollination for all those illegal grows that are out there. That we could only get to 52 last year out of 1,000. 300 was what Ethan Turner said we were going to get. I don't think we got close at 52. That's like 250 got away. Now, number one, you can't sell hemp to somebody who wants marijuana unless they don't smoke it. If they look at it and they smell it and don't smoke it, they might buy it. Funny thing. Problem is, if you're growing hemp, I don't care if it's 10 acres, 5 acres, 3 acres, 100 acres, or 1,000 acres. You grow it for the 25,000 different products that can be used for that hemp. You don't grow it for somebody to go out and get high. In the 70s, when CBD was first coming out, somebody came up to you and they gave you this really nice looking bud. It smelled great. It tasted great. You smoked it and you said, what the heck is this? It don't do a damn thing. Oh, it's CBD. It's the new wonder drug. We need CBD. Now, CBD's been found very helpful for seizures, for muscle pain, for joint pain, arthritis pain. THC doesn't really help that. THC helps Alzheimer's, cancer, fibromyalgia, a myriad of other things. Hemp, as its own plant, again has 25,000 different products that it can be used in. Concrete. It can be used to make denim. Levi's just invested, I don't know, $5 to $10 million to build a plant to make hemp Levi's. So your jeans are going to be made out of hemp in the future, not cotton. Cotton's too expensive. Hemp's the new fiber that will replace plastic. Ford made a car in 1937 that was, the whole body was made out of hemp and resin. It's still there at the Ford company. You can go in there and they have a room and you can take a baseball bat to that car and you can't hurt it.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Good afternoon. You know, for 2 years we've heard about all the wonderful benefits of cannabis/marijuana. But what's the truth? Marijuana doesn't give us all the benefits we were told about. Most of them come from industrial hemp. There are some 50,000 products that can be made from industrial hemp. Some of the more common ones include paper, clothing, food, fuel, building materials, beauty, and skin products. Hemp can be used to decontaminate soil at a very rapid rate by absorbing the various toxins it might contain. The plant is also adept at removing toxins from soil that has been cultivated around the Chernobyl nuclear disaster site for over 20 years. We should require industrial hemp to be planted at every grow site where toxins have been introduced into the soil. The increasing popularity of CBD has also led to numerous hemp-derived CBD products that are now available almost everywhere and don't cause intoxication, but have all the medical benefits of medical marijuana. Research has shown that CBD has more medical benefits than THC without the intoxicating effect. Industrial hemp contains trace amounts of THC less than 1%. Marijuana can contain as high as 30% THC. What industrial hemp lacks in THC, however, it makes up for in CBD. Hemp is naturally abundant in CBD, while marijuana has high levels of THC and contains almost no CBD. It was argued by a local grower on Valley Springs Bulletin Board on Facebook that hemp and marijuana are the same plant and that legalizing industrial hemp would legalize all cannabis, including recreational and medical marijuana. So it can also be said that prohibiting the cultivation of industrial hemp would prohibit the cultivation of all types of cannabis. However, we should separate the two and allow only the production of the superior product, industrial hemp, that has all the benefits that we have been told about for 2 years and none of the negatives. Industrial hemp cleans the environment, does not have a black market, so it doesn't attract crime. It does not increase the number of impaired drivers on the road and has no negative impact on our youth. Industrial hemp is easy to distinguish from marijuana because it is grown as a row crop like corn, not in containers filled with high-powered soils that are not native to our environment. Take the time to learn the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Free from deceit, free from corruption, and free to make the right decisions for this county. And please stop trying to fool us with the smoke and mirrors tactics that we have sadly grown to expect from our local government. That's all this is. You look at R under this regulation, it tells you what this is all about. They don't want hemp affecting the cannabis crops. We're trying to protect federally illegal crop by banning a federally legal crop. Does that really make sense? You just don't allow hemp to be grown in containers. You allow it to be grown as it's always been grown, in fields and in rows.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Vicki Reinke. I just wanted to make a quick comment on this topic when I saw it, because I know in the past we've made comments about, well, why not grow hemp, since hemp doesn't have the high THC, which is the big reason why the communities here don't want marijuana growing here, because of it's a drug and people get high on it, and that's the purpose of it. So I would probably venture to guess that most of the people that have come here trying to legalize the marijuana are not really that supportive of hemp, except that it's a start. But I agree with what was just said, that, and again, we shouldn't rush into it. I'm glad that Commissioner Banner brought this forward to have a discussion, because the state hasn't come up with exactly what they want to do with it. And if it becomes a product that does look like marijuana, we can't have that happen in our county. So anyway, I just want to say that the idea of hemp isn't so bad. If that's what they want to do with it. I'm sure it's the CBD oils, not the the fiber, not the rope, and all the things that we used to use. And that's why the federal government took it off the list, because it doesn't have an adverse effect on people like the marijuana with the THC in it. So I hope that you'll think about the hemp as a product that possibly could be grown here. But as always, I'm totally against having the marijuana growing here that is a drug that's for no other purpose. Thank you.
Yeah. Bill?
Mr. Chairman, esteemed commissioners and supervisors, thank you and good afternoon. My name is Lupe Ortiz. I am a member of a small collective here in the local Tri-County area. Our group has a real estate holding here in the county. I will tell you that a lot of other counties are watching to see what's going to happen here today. I also want to tell you that from a business point of view, the value of our crop, which is what it is now. I've met with Commissioner Wright. He's a great man. He's doing a fabulous job for the conditions that have been set upon him. But the value of my crop is directly related to the THC content and the moisture in my crop. When I go and I secure a purchase order from a company, I can't sell them something that they can't use. So it's in my best interest to motivate myself to grow the crop correctly. We're not opposed to regulations. When I opened my first body shop, the fire department came in, made sure I had sprinklers. Bay Area Quality came in, made sure I wasn't polluting the air. The Bureau of Automotive Repair came in and made sure I was doing my repairs correctly. And everybody charged a fee. It's part of doing business. So, though I don't think there's an emergency in the county, I agree with Commissioner Wright that there are some concerns. I agree with his consideration of the concerns, but I don't agree with his action. I think that this county's been progressive, and I hate to see the momentum stop. I think there's other workarounds through workshops and maybe some type of other invitation to develop regulations, but I certainly would hate to hasten the delay of what the progression of this county has done so far, and I really look forward to what they're going to do in the future. I thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Board. What I fear is happening again has happened so many times before, and that's when there's an element of the Board that seems to be in a frenzy to get to the finish line. They forget the steps in between, and it becomes kind of a ready, fire, aim situation. Now we find ourselves embroiled with other superior agencies, state and feds, that may or may not have all their laws, regulations set up, and we're trying to do something to make a difference, to plant a flag, to say this is where we're going to go, regardless of what's happening in the outside world. I don't know anything about hemp that much or anything else. All I'm saying is that I break it down a little bit differently. And with hemp, they say there's going to be an odor. It's going to be an identifying smell. Well, hemp's evil twin, cannabis, also has an odor, an identifying smell. But what the evil twin has that hemp doesn't have is hemp is not a crime magnet. It has a potential, doesn't have potential for environmental disasters, and it's federally legal. The evil twin is not legal. The evil twin is a crime magnet. So, what are we going to do with all this? More regulations on top of regulations on top of regulations, and no one talks about enforcement, because without enforcement, regulations are worthless. So kind of the way I look at it is if hemp were growing here, and a mix of male and female plants, whatever, they're making rope jeans, I don't care. If that somehow affects the marijuana industry, I'm all for it. That's the same as having a real good abatement team out there getting rid of pot, and we don't have to pay for it. In fact, we can tax it, because hemp can produce typically about $60,000 per acre, and that's based on oil and seeds and everything else and getting rid of the product. That could be a new industry for the county. I don't know. I'm not advocating a new industry based on hemp. All I'm worried about is, yet again, and I'll try to say it without cracking up, but we're faced with trying to run this county with hurried and rushed urgency ordinances. We have already been down that path, and we know we have a history, let me put it that way, and it's an ugly history. And yet you propose to do it again just to get in a hurry to eliminate any source of danger for the industry that you favor most, which is commercial marijuana, cannabis, THC plants. And I think that's the wrong way to go. Like I say, all the regulations have not been completed. Thank you.
How many more people want to speak? To raise your hands, I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, Sue, you be the last.
Okay. So I had property in Colorado as of 2013. Hemp has been being grown in Colorado since 2013. There was a registration program last summer that a friend of mine was renting the property. He applied for a hemp license. He didn't have the capital to pull off a full crop this year, but CBD is what people are growing for. It's throughout Colorado. There's very little industrial hemp where it's densely cultivated. They are growing it like the not evil twin of high THC. THC has medical benefit. CBD has medical benefit. It is all cannabis. Let's be clear on that. It's wrong to suggest that one is better than the other. They have their differences. But in Colorado, for the last 6 years, they have coexisted. I sold my property this summer because of the ban. I wasn't able to afford both properties. I got an email last week from somebody that lived down the road from me, from my property. He said, "Hey, I see you're on the state hemp registry. Can we cooperate?" It comes down to something as simple as that when good neighbors try to coexist. We don't need bans. We need regulation. I think that this is a wonderful opportunity to let the people who were banned for commercial cannabis to get a CBD crop in. I think that you should consider regulating CBD as another agricultural thing, to suggest that all THC growers are opposed to hemp is just simply not true. For 35 years, I've dedicated my life to fighting bans against hemp and the other, let's just say THC-rich product, because it's all good medicine. It's all good for the environment and for the economy when grown organically and properly. I think that you should get together a working group of stakeholders and regulate these things so that we can be good neighbors, so that we can be good stewards. We don't need to battle on this stuff. I actually agreed with much of what Pastor Trent said. I'm all for CBD. I'm also for THC. They're both good medicine. And the CBD is the highest value crop that you're going to get from cannabis. I think that most people that are interested in getting a permit to grow CBD would grow it organically so that it could be sold on the CBD market. I think it's ironic that we're having economic discussions and ban discussions. Thank you.
Upside down, question mark, asterisk, period. I wish that we could just do things for all of our good instead of evil. And unfortunately, being human beings, we have human natures and we don't do that. And I believe that the farm advisor is correct in that hemp will be used as a subterfuge for growing pot. And that really irks me. On the other hand, I think I can see that there's many good products that could derive from it. I think it should be grown in the valley. If it would take down the drug value from pot, I would be for that, but I don't think the trade-off is worth it. Thanks.
Afternoon. A couple clarifications. It's the USDA that's overseeing registrations with individual counties and approving state plans for those registrations for each county. It's the FDA that is overseeing CBD and how that will be allowed, whether, as you stated correctly, it's currently not allowed in food products here in California and some other states, but that doesn't preclude it from being utilized in tinctures or other oils, so it's not an illegal substance. I'm sorry. It's been decriminalized and taken off Schedule 1 CSA, I think it Controlled Substances Act, exactly. And the plant is being grown across the country. There were, from 2017 to 2018, total production tripled to 80,000 acres, and it's expected to grow to 450 to 500,000 acres this year. I mean, in comparison, corn crops across country are 90 million acres. So the processing capacity is what is currently driving the value of the flower, and they are all scaling up to industrial levels. There will be a shortage of biomass this year, CBD biomass this year, and that retains its value. But as more refiners increase their production capabilities, there's going to be a carrying capacity that they hit, and the price of this commodity is going to tank, just like it happened with regulation in cannabis. What used to be a $3,000 a pound crop is now down to $500. CBD is worth $100 a pound, and short order in the next couple of years, it's going to be worth, $5, $10. And so, having allowed us to invest in our properties and establish farming capabilities, and I want permanent cannabis regulation, but it's clear that that's not going to happen this year, and I'm starving. My family is starving. I need to be able to utilize the money that I put in to my property to fund a business, be allowed to operate again, one way or the other. And simply banning this is just the wrong way to go.
A question and maybe a comment. Am I to understand that cannabis, the THC kind, the stalks cannot be used as hemp, as fiber? Or is there a dual purpose with the regular cannabis? Can the buds be used for one thing and the stalks be used for the fiber? And then my other observation is talking about the destruction of the crops. If we're cutting down plants and spending money or putting them in the landfill and destroying them, could that process be used in my, composting facility that I'm talking about? The green waste, could that also be funneled through that process to make compost? And when we're talking, we were talking about filling potholes. Can pot be used to fill potholes? I mean, if we're talking about fiber, put it in the ground, cover it with tar, and maybe we can take care of some of the potholes. That's my last silly observation. Thank you.
It's called hempcrete.
Hempcrete?
Hempcrete, you mix the fiber with concrete.
So maybe there is a way to process it with the tar.
Yeah, you can use the stalks for fiber. Hi there. So I don't really entertain the belief that anything I say is going to influence your decision today, but it's kind of impossible for me to sit by and just watch another train wreck without comment since I'm on the train that you're collectively steering. The state imposed temporary limits to give small growers a chance to establish brands and distribution streams before they unleashed multinational corporate capital on our tenuous existence. Whether decisions you're making around hemp and THC cannabis cultivation are designed to crush the local family farms that have struggled to establish themselves, or it's an unintended consequence that we become collateral damage, the result is the same. We, the formerly registered growers, have to kind of sit on the sidelines and watch while opportunities taken from us and given to a few well-capitalized interests, a future constituency. And the people who prohibited from growing cannabis this year could have grown hemp while it still has some value, which it probably won't by next year, for reasons Neil pointed out. And to the extent pollination is a concern, that is funny, because given there's no lawful outdoor cannabis cultivation in the county this year, the moratorium would only protect illegal growers from pollination problems. Bill said your actions are designed to protect your favored industry. I'll say whether it's by design or chance, so far the policies presently in effect most benefit the illegal cannabis industry. And listening to the conversation in the room today makes it really clear our policymakers lack enough understanding of the plant and the related industries to really wisely regulate it. When regulating cattle ranching, vineyards, or any other kind of ag, generally input is sought from people who know the business. Why should this be different? And I didn't have time to do enough reading to get clarity on this today, so I'll end with a question if it's possible to get an answer. Section 3C of the ordinance says, no industrial hemp cultivation shall be deemed an agricultural operation for purposes of Title 14 of the County Code, legally existing agricultural land use for Title 17 of the Calaveras County Code. My question is, so am I to interpret that this provision will mean so-called industrial hemp, not unlike THC cannabis, will be barred from having an ag designation and the benefits conferred on all other industries that do have that designation? And I'd love to hear the answer to that. Thank you.
I understand that you are asking for time to figure this out. Meanwhile, there are people who have been really hurt by, in good faith, trying to grow. And they will be hurt again by this. So what I would ask is that in thinking about this, you think about who you are hurting, who you are helping, and whether you are promoting something that's going to turn into big agribusiness here, rather than promote the small growers and the lifestyle that we want here. And I think where there's a will, there's a way usually. And rather than be afraid of what you can't do, look for a way to do what you do want to do.
At first, how much land is needed for growing hemp? I think in the law it says you can't grow less than 1/10 of an acre. So it's got to be at least that much. Whether somebody can make a living growing 1/10 of an acre of hemp or not, I'm not sure. Maybe if you had a retail kind of an operation, he might be able to make a living. But as other people have stated, as time goes on and the economics of the inefficiencies of growing hemp take over, it won't be long before that it'll take actually a large land holding to make any money out of hemp even for CBD. Whether hemp is in the county now or not, I'm not sure. I don't believe that it is. Whether it's a solution looking for a problem, I don't think so. As I stated in my reasons, that I would like the temporary moratorium on hemp because it's going to be very difficult for the sheriff to enforce our present ban with a hemp program in place. And as far as the difference between the two, and the Ag Commissioner not knowing the difference, as I stated a few different times, the hemp plant and the cannabis plant are morphing into plants that are grown individually. The hemp plant for CBD, the cannabis plant for THC. I don't think this is what should be a debate of whether hemp or cannabis is good or bad, but you have to be thinking about whether you want a plant grown on every parcel, the full extent of that parcel, sucking up groundwater and having an odor. I haven't heard anything about dual purpose, whether the plant could be used for THC and then the stems for industrial hemp. I don't think anybody's done that, but I suppose it could be done. As far as green waste composites go, I think that might be a good idea. It will be considered an agricultural commodity as a legal thing, as far as the benefits of being an agricultural commodity. Don't forget, it is still a special agricultural commodity in that there's no other agricultural commodity that needs to be tested for levels of THC. So it's an agricultural commodity with special needs. The other point is that because it's pretty much going to be just a look-alike as far as cannabis goes, the potential for bad players, it's always nice to say we want to work together and everybody be nice, but we said that about cannabis too. And although we had 750 people who registered, not all of them were good neighbors, and there's probably at least another 750 that came in and didn't bother to register. So I think we have to think of the potential for bad players and the opportunity that we might be giving them by having a quickly thought out hemp ordinance before we have cannabis under control.
Thank you very much. Board members, is there further information that you need before I close this public hearing and bring it back to the board for decision? Supervisor Stopper?
This goes to probably all three of you, because I brought it up during the last study session. This being an agricultural commodity, and if someone were to grow on A1 property, would they be able to grade the entire property without having to get a permit?
If we consider it agricultural commodity,
grading for the purpose of agriculture is exempt from our grading ordinance.
So with us not having a ordinance in place on hemp, making it something other than an agricultural commodity, someone could have 2,000 acres up in the hills, zoned A1, and plow everything down on those hills for 2,000 acres and be able to plant their hemp.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, Peter, is, or even our esteemed agriculture department head, is the use of nutrients and pesticides, regardless of whether it's a CBD extract or a regular hemp, is not regulated by the state. So in fact, we could have more potential land impact from pesticides, nutrients, and grading, with it being an agricultural use and not having the regulations of a commercial cultivation, cannabis.
Well, I don't quite understand the question. You would have the pesticide regulations in place no matter what.
Right. So there's certain pesticides aren't allowed by the state on grapes and other types of agriculture. The regulations imposed on commercial cannabis are much more extravagant than any other agricultural use. But this being an agricultural use, those types of pesticides and nutrients that are open game on thousands of acres of graded land.
That's true. There will be pesticides labeled for use on hemp because it will be federally legal.
So the potential impact could be extravagant.
The potential impact could be extravagant because, one, the acreage, there's no acreage restriction.
Well, tenth of an acre and under is no good, so you can't put it on your house in Gold Creek. But anything bigger than that, up to the size of Calaveras, is good.
They could be doing an aerial application.
Yes. All right. Thank you, sir.
Please don't leave. Mr. Wright?
Supervisor Mills?
Please don't leave. Because it isn't truly the point with pesticides that there is an application rate, there is a label that's on all of those different pesticides as to what the level of application can be per acre, and they go through an extravagant series of processes, as you well know. So to say it's unrestricted or uncontrolled is not a correct statement. It would have to be applied according to the label to which the manufacturer has set.
Exactly.
Okay. So my question was, if this would be labeled as a specialized agricultural commodity, from your perspective, then we could develop specific regulations or limitations based upon that alone. Would that be possible?
I believe so, zoning-wise. You would have to take it as a zoning kind of amendment.
But for your work as an agricultural commissioner, what would you need to have to be able to properly regulate or control this specific commodity that you don't have in place now?
Nothing. As far as pesticide regulation, I can regulate it.
Any differently?
I wouldn't regulate it any differently than I would corn.
So really it does come down to more of a land use decision than it does an agricultural decision.
Right.
Thank you.
You know, with the cannabis, we had water issues, we had dust issues, we had people coming and going at all hours of the night. But you have that in any agricultural situation. So, you know, zoning is very important. Even with cannabis, we are now thinking about putting it on larger acreage, and that's when you're only dealing with 1 acre or half an acre. So with hemp, you know, you're just going to get that multiplied, but it would still be an agricultural crop.
I appreciate your response.
Thank you. Is there any more information that this board needs to make a decision before I close the public hearing and we bring it back to the board? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Further discussion or motion on this item?
Well, Chair, I think Commissioner Wright made a good point, and I see this as a work in progress. The state really hasn't settled down and decided. I don't want to be tracking down a route to which we're going to be in an ever-changing playing field, because they're going to make it that way. And that's going to create some difficulties for your staff, for planning staff, for everybody else to decide what they're going to do, and then how does that affect 806, and how do we control it from a nuisance aspect when it gets out of control. I'm ever mindful of neighbors, ever mindful that neighbors cannot be affected by whatever decision that we make. We need to protect the neighborhoods. So in land use, it comes down to what level is the county willing to allow this, and what type of regulation would it take to make that happen. It is a federally legal commodity. I can't argue with that. But are we ready to allow it to be used in Calaveras County as an agricultural product? Are we capable of doing anything different than we're doing now? So that is my concern.
Supervisor Callaway.
Well, after hearing Mrs. Reneke, I thought, phew, that's a wrap. We don't need to do anything. I was really surprised at what she said. She said hemp's okay, and if she's still here, thank you. I thought that's what I heard you say, but if not. Sue said, let's look for a way to do what it is we want to do. And I don't believe what's before us is to make it illegal or a ban. What's before us is a moratorium. I went into this agenda item very reluctant to support a moratorium, an urgency ordinance, call it a moratorium, what have you. But after reading the state regulations, after reading the Farm Bill, after reading Senate Bill 1409 and Mr. Wright's recommendations, I do support a moratorium for the reasons of the 1/10 of an acre, which is allowed. We're going to get back into the issues we had before. Odor being an issue. There is no land use control for the county whatsoever. I do have a concern about cross-pollination, though I have to say I'm not real clear on technically what that means. I mean, does that mean that you need to have a barrier, you need to be 30 miles away, 300 feet away? I think that's still up for probably discussion. I really support what Beth said about putting a working group together, and we could discuss what that looks like, and maybe we need to try something new for this. We have some time. Since we are in the middle of the cannabis issue, I don't believe in putting the hemp issue in is going to be fair to the proposed cannabis cultivators. I don't want us to mix up the subjects, and we have we're working on a proposed cannabis ordinance. If I understood Mr. Wright correctly, this is an agricultural commodity per the federal government and the state government. And there is the issues of water, fertilizer. I think he just addressed the one on pesticides and so forth. And based on what I'm hearing, I think we should omit Section 3.C of the proposed moratorium. Whatever
3C.
the ordinance before us. So I will support 3.C, Section 3.C. It's come up a couple of times in the conversation this afternoon. As I said, I didn't go into this wanting to support it, but I think there's some red flags there that we need to deal with. This is not a ban. This is just a moratorium, and let us hopefully this year, Neil, I am hoping we have a cannabis ordinance this year, and I hope we have a hemp this year. That's it.
Thank you. Supervisor Stopper.
Well, after everything we've been through the last 3 years, I first read this and I had my tentative look at it, seeing urgency ordinance to begin with. But there's no other way to facilitate getting something done in a timely manner. I think I spoke out when I was saying about grading and the other concerns on nutrients. Now, maybe pesticides are a little bit more controlled than the nutrients, but the nutrients could be used to a certain rate on land, and with the potential of thousands of acres, it will have an extreme effect on water one way or the other. Some in places more than others, depending on where you're at in the county. One thing with it being an urgency ordinance is it is temporary. So I think moving forward, giving direction to staff so that they aren't confused on what direction the board wants them to go in the future would be prudent of us to do, so that they could facilitate getting something put into place that would follow the will of the majority in a timely manner, so we don't run up on, like, say, the last day of an urgency ordinance and we're scrambling to put one thing through or another. I want something well thought out and in place well before that time comes to bear. So with that, I would move this as is, but I would let Gary talk first.
Supervisor Topanelli. So
well, I appreciate
it. That was a motion. So if you've made a motion, we have to deal with that before we continue discussion. If there's a second, then we continue discussion. I think
you need to withdraw.
I'll withdraw it.
We have some flexibility. Okay. Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate everybody that spoke today and the comments that were made. And the one comment about hastily going into an urgency ordinance again, it just doesn't even make sense to me, because the previous urgency ordinance was allowing something and it didn't cover so many bases that we had nothing but problems with it. To not do this today would simply be doing that again, because there would be no control at all. And a tenth of an acre, when we had the smallest 2 acre grows on 2 acre plots, my phone was constantly ringing. If this happens down to a tenth of an acre, it's going to be constantly ringing even more, especially when it starts getting into September and October, and the smell from it and the odor from it. People are going to be complaining. And then again, I agree 100% completely with the Ag Commissioner on all of his points that he talked about, especially trying to distinguish it. If it's going to be growing in pots and so forth, there are going to be people playing the game of growing it, whether the sheriff is going to be able to identify it or not. You only have a month to determine whether it's going to be 0.3 or not. It's just, if we're going to do this is not the venue. This is to put a moratorium on it, is to bring it back and have a discussion about it and what this board would allow to go forward as far as the hemp production on it. So I completely agree with you, Kevin, on this issue that you brought forward to us. I just don't see not doing nothing about it until the states gets their act together and we're not going down some path that we have no control over. We need to bring this back at a study session separately, or even have the discussion when the next study session comes back for cannabis grows.
Gary, just a point of clarification. The tenth of an acre was the minimum amount of hemp that can be
That you can grow.
on a parcel. The minimum parcel size would be up to, Peter, I don't know the minimum parcel size on rural residential or where you have a smallest size for a commercial agricultural operation. I think it was a half an acre was in the original.
Well, again, there isn't a standard, but if it's considered agricultural.
Excuse me, we closed the public hearing, so
Okay.
you can't consider any of this as evidence.
But I understand completely what you're saying. Okay, I understand. If I
Sorry,
misspoke about
should've jumped in
it was a
there.
10, so, yeah, and the fact that it's an RR, an RA, it's going to create problems. So,
I think we ultimately need to control the land use decision, no matter what that decision is, and not let the state decide for us what they think is best. I don't care what it is. That is one of the things the Constitution gives the counties the right to do, and we certainly are not, I don't think anybody on this board is willing to give that up. So,
Supervisor Stopper.
I'll move this as is.
This motion is moved by Supervisor Stopper.
Are you comfortable referring to council quickly? I mean, been over it quite a few more times in the last week or so. You're comfortable with that, it as is, worded and?
Certainly, my office didn't have any concerns with the way it was drafted.
Okay. Correct. Thank you.
There's a second.
I will second it.
It's seconded by Supervisor Mills. I will call the vote.
I'd like to do an amended motion. That's too late.
We have a
motion on the floor.
Till we act on this motion.
So we move forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to supervisor
I know
announcements.
you wanted C3.
In compliance with AB 1234, chaptered as Government Code Section 53232.3D, board members shall provide brief reports on meetings they attended at the expense of the local agency at the next regular meeting of the legislative body. This report is required to include meetings attended for which there has been expense reimbursement, such as mileage, meals, lodging, etc., but may also, at the board member's discretion, include any other meeting attended by the supervisor on behalf of the county.
Well, why don't we go in order? Supervisor Tuffanelli.
I do have something to report. I attended a COG meeting last Wednesday night, and the new District 10 supervisor for Caltrans attended that meeting. And he introduced himself, and he passed out his cards, and he talked about, Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, that he talked about projects that were going to be going on here in Calaveras County in the total of $30 million. Is that correct? The $30 million projects over the next course of the next year or two that we're going to be done here in Calaveras County.
To add to that, he never thought he'd be carrying the water for Calaveras County.
Yeah, that's right. He was very appreciative and very liked Amber, our COG CEO, and the COG itself, Calaveras COG itself. We thought it was a great organization, and Amber was a great leader. So I got his card, I had a conversation with him, and I'm going to have lunch with him as soon as I set it up. He said to give him a call, and I'll have lunch with him and discuss several items that are going on as chair of COG here in Calaveras County.
Thank you. Supervisor Stopper.
Last week, I attended a Fish and Game Committee meeting. Not much to report out on that, other than they're putting together the Kids Fishing Day up in Murphy's Park, coming later this spring. I also went to was it Wednesday night? What's that meeting that was here the last Wednesday?
Last month it was called.
Not COG. It's the RCD. Sorry.
Oh, the RCD meeting.
RCD meeting.
Real conservation.
Yeah, and that was very interesting. Just to sit down and listen to those guys, everything they're working on and everything. Thank you. I was drawing a blank, and just been out in the community. The Raging Cajun Festival in San Andreas. I showed up to that this weekend. That's pretty much the most people I've seen in San Andreas in a really long time, if ever. And it was amazing how many people showed up. And with that, I'll pass it on to you, Dennis.
Thank you. I think the only one sad thing this week was the first time that I'd heard of a pedestrian passing away on Little John over there in Copperopolis. That is a first in my history that I've ever heard of that happening down there. So that's a sad note. Thank you, OES Coordinator Michelle, for helping the City of Angels Camp with their sinkhole on Summit Road, which is behind the mortuary. That's going to be an ongoing project, probably more than they really wanted to know. Attended COG, CMCAA, and CAMRA. Working with Bureau Reclamation on reducing flash fuels around New Maloney's and trying to gain some grazing permits for getting those grasses down before the summer hits. I'll be on a float and Irish Days up in Murphy's this weekend. But the thing that I'd like to talk about very quickly, and this is something that Cielo Lopez and myself and Brian Moss attended a meeting with CCWD yesterday afternoon, and they're wanting to step back as the lead role in the Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Basin Authority. They feel like they put literally $100,000 plus towards the effort, and they would like the counties to take the lead role in it. But I know what's going to happen there is that when I'm looking at that water balance report and the requirements that they're asking for us, we're going to need to hire a consultant. We're going to need to hire a part-time person just to complete our portion of it. And this is time critical. This is something they're willing to come before this board in April to do a presentation if necessary. But we stand to have to put about $250,000 into a budget next year, which I don't know how we're going to get a recovery on it if we don't step up and really make our case. We have enough geological data through Brian Moss, and I know that we can make a good case for our portion of the groundwater balance. But we're going to have to make that case very quickly over the next, 2 months roughly, if we're going to be successful at it. There's no way for us to go through a 118 process to withdraw, and we still have a problem with Valley Springs Public Utility District. They have to be involved at this point, and we've had no contact with anyone there as to what they're going to do. This is very similar to Woodbridge, who decided to back out of the Eastern San Joaquin, and the county's throwing up their hands going, wait a minute, we're not taking you. What's going to happen here? So if we want to maintain compliance and not put ourselves in a position where the State Water Board is going to take control of that portion of the basin, then we really need to be engaged. And between now and January of next year, it's mission critical for all of us. So
I think, sorry.
No, it's quite all right. I just wanted
we need to bring this back to the board. And we don't need to learn everything about Sigma, but we better talk about that.
Can I just ask to have an agenda item put up as quickly as possible that those members from CCW who have been engaged can come before this board, explain the situation, explain the position, and so we know what we're up against and what we're going to need to do as a county going forward. I'm just asking for an agenda item. If I need to poll for it, that's fine.
No, I don't.
There's proper paperwork.
Yeah, we can bring something back. I'm not sure we can do it in 2 weeks. It might be
1st of April?
Yeah.
First week of April, possibly?
Well, second Tuesday. Second Tuesday.
Would you be willing to reach out to CCWD to be sure that they're available, Peter Martin and Michael Minkler?
It'd be the second week in April, first week in April, we're off.
And I'm sure it would take about a 30-minute presentation time.
Do you need a poll?
Yeah, I think we need a poll.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to do a poll on whether we want to have a conversation at board level about Sigma and our role in it.
But we need to have that full conversation as quickly as possible. That's my goal.
I'm trying to understand.
Supervisor Callaway.
I'm trying to understand what is the urgency, since we're not going to be doing budgets until
I can't get into, we can't get into too much crosstalk on it right here. This is something that have to be an agendized item before, so we
He's
could
correct.
explain it.
So the poll is just to see if the board wants an item to come, and then we would get it scheduled. It's not an urgent item. It is just, you want to know if the board wants to have that item and
And
that
how
discussion.
quickly, and what they want to do with it.
Well, we don't know what we want to do with it if you can't talk about it, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Supervisor Stopper?
Yes.
Yes.
Supervisor Mills?
Yes.
Supervisor Callaway?
Yeah.
Supervisor Garamendi, yes, 5-0, so bring it back as soon as we're ready.
Thank you, Board, I appreciate that, and that's all I have.
Supervisor Callaway?
I met with the U.S. Forest Service and ACCG and RCD and a whole bunch of other initial people last week. Please correct me, Chief, if I'm wrong, on the Avery Arnold fire breaks, and it became evident, and I've heard it in other formats, and at least in the Ebbets Pass area, we know we need fire clearance and we need fire breaks, but then it changes the visual impacts of the neighborhood, and, so there seems to be a dichotomy between what the environment is and protecting communities. And as the Forest Service said, our charge is to protect the spotted owl. Our charge is to protect the communities. So I'm assuming that this is something that we're all going to run into within our respective communities with our respective fire districts. It's particularly poignant up in the Ebbets Pass area. I also went to TIPS training, so now I can legally pour wine and our alcohol beverage legally under the state ABC. So, yes, I went to the TIPS training. Well, you never know when the opportunity might arise. No. This Saturday is Irish Days, and if you come to Irish Days, you'll be able to see Half-Ass Adventure Company, and Barb does a really good job, and that's it. Bill Wells, who's one of my favorite musicians, will be playing at Hovey Winery, another favorite. You all need to come. Oh, well, I'm on the board of the Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance, so whatever comes up, comes up.
Thank you. I only got one more, guys. I'm in. Space Planning Subcommittee. We did a poll on this last meeting. Space planning, capital projects. We're going to have that on the agenda at the 26th, so we could make that official and get things going. I want to inform you that I am going back on. I spoke to Vice Chair Callaway about this, but on to Washington, D.C., April 1st through the 4th, we'll be working jointly with CCWD, so I'd like to get together and get some more information on that. Me O'Connell, our lobbyist, is putting together an agenda. We will share that prior to going as well. So, I think I figured out how to do this trip pretty cheap. So we'll keep that down low. Sleeping on the couch, guys, sleeping on the couch. If there's nothing else, I would like to adjourn today, but you know what? My community lost a really good guy a couple weeks ago. John George passed away. And if it's with your permission, I would like to adjourn in his memory. Oh, thank you very much. But before we adjourn, staff of the CAO?
Nothing to add.
Megan?
I just wanted to give a reminder to the board, to all the members of boards, committees, commissions that are required to file, and all the special district people out there, that the Form 700 deadline to file is April 1st. So if you haven't filed already, please make sure that you do.
How often? Peter? Oh, so let's adjourn in honor of John George.